Hello everyone, welcome back to more 428 Shibuya Scramble. So I'm gonna be starting block 17 to 18, 5 to 6. It looks like it's a pretty short block, compared to the others, so I'll probably, continue on. Don't know how far I'll get, but anyway, we start with Kano. A gunshot rang out from Tatino's gun, but it was a wild shot, fired reflexively as the weapon flew out of his hand. A figure had leapt from behind the water storage tank, kicking him in the arm that held the gun. Then, moving almost too fast for the eye to track, the newcomer delivered an elbow strike to Tatino's jaw. Kano didn't even have the chance to fire his gun. Before he could react, Maria's kidnapper was already laid out on the ground. At least she's alive, that's all I care about. Without so much as looking back, the girl bolted down the stairs. "Maria!" Kano shouted. He started to chase after her, but a bright glimmer in the corner of his eye stopped him in his tracks. The strange assailant had drawn a knife, and was preparing to slit the unconscious Tatino's throat. Kano quickly brought his gun back to bear. "Stop right there." The knife stopped, mere millimeters from Tatino's neck. Kano was sure that if he hadn't intervened, the detective's throat would have been slit already. The knife wielder pulled back the hood that had been concealing her face. "You. I know you," Kano said, shocked to see that he recognized the attacker. "Kano!" It was the girl who'd been knocked down by the minivan explosion. "Why stop me?" she asked, her tone ice cold. "Weren't you just about to shoot him yourself?" "I don't have a reason to shoot him anymore. Not now that you've helped Maria escape. Please, put the knife away." "Very well. Looks like he's not waking up for a while anyway." The girl withdrew the knife and rose to her feet. "Why did you come to Maria's rescue?" "Because she's my friend," the girl said simply. "She's been infected with the virus," Kano said. "We have to get her to help as soon as possible." He headed for the stairs that Maria had scampered down. "Not so fast. Don't move." The girl's sharp tone made Kano stop. "What for?" he demanded. "I thought you wanted to help." "I do want to help her, which is why I'm not letting the police get their hands on her." The girl's voice was quiet, but hard as steel. "The police are afraid of the UA virus spreading, which is why they'll certainly place Maria under quarantine. If that happens, there won't be any way to save her." "Just who in the world are you?" "Before I answer that, let's make a deal." Kano waited, non-committal. "I have information relevant to this case," the girl continued. "I want to make an exchange." Kano swallowed the lump in his throat. "In exchange for what?" "Tell me where Hitomi Osawa is." "Hitomi Osawa?" Stanley had taken Hitomi into custody. Kano could probably get in touch and ask him where she was, but... "Why do you want to know where Hitomi is?" "Do we have a deal or not?" The girl looked like she was in no mood to argue. Still, if she knew about the UA virus, she was probably telling the truth about having information. But it was a violation of police policy to leak information on any investigation to a third party. Besides, was it wise to trust this young woman without knowing who she was? Kano weighed his options for a moment before replying. "Obviously, we can trust her." First I need to know who you are." My name is Kanon. Kanon? Kano thought back to the grisly scene at the Foreign Syndicate's hideout. Did she do that? Kano was almost afraid to wonder. As if sensing his unease, Kanon spoke up, her voice low and calm. Once you hear what I have to say, I think you'll be more inclined to tell me where Hitomi is. There is still a lingering trace of adolescence in this strange girl's face. It was hard to believe someone so young could be a covert Middle Eastern operative. And yet Kano had seen how quickly she'd be able to render Tateno unconscious. Alright then. Guess I'll go first, Kanon began. There's someone out there trying to get their hands on the antiviral drug. My objective is to eliminate this person and put a stop to their plan. Kano felt neither surprise nor horror at her use of the term eliminate. After all that had happened today, he realized his sensibilities had gone numb. This person you're after. You're talking about an arms dealer named Alfred, aren't you? Kanon nodded. The other virus has been weaponized and tested several times on the battlefield to great effect, she said. The antiviral would render this weapon wholly ineffective. Countries the world over are dying to get their hands on it. Then why did Alfred orchestrate this kidnapping? If the goal is to get the antiviral, why not just steal it from the laboratory? There's a lot about the kidnapping case that still didn't add up. Kano was sure Alfred's plan was hidden in those baffling details. Lab security at Akoshi Pharmaceutical is practically perfect. The place is under surveillance 24 hours a day, and getting to where the antiviral is stored requires bypassing 3 sophisticated electronic locks. Getting the antiviral out is impossible. Unexpectedly, a sly grin appeared on Kanon's face. If you were Alfred, how would you steal it? She asked. Huh? Kano was taken aback by the sudden question. He thought good and hard about how to answer. If you can't sneak something out, maybe you can sneak something in. Kano hadn't had any particular flash of insight. He just figured the opposite of the obvious might be the answer. To his surprise, Kanon gave a nod. Very astute. Wait, really? 6 days ago, Alfred injected Hitomi Osawa with the Ua virus. What? The tale had taken a sudden and very unexpected turn. So it wasn't only Maria who'd been infected, but Hitomi as well. And 6 days ago at that... Wait, hold on. Hitomi Osawa was perfectly healthy earlier today. So that must mean... Exactly. Kenji Osawa administered the antiviral to her. An unsettling thought occurred to Kano. It was supposedly impossible for Osawa to access the antiviral all by himself. But if he'd been able to give it to his daughter all the same, then that had to mean... He needed Mamoru Tanaka's help to do it, of course, Kanon said. Which is why Alfred bribed Tanaka ahead of time. So that's what happened. Tanaka had been paid off to inject Hitomi with the virus. Getting Osawa to take action at that point wouldn't have been difficult. But why go to such lengths to get this antiviral administered to Hitomi? Why would Alfred have Hitomi infected with the virus only to then have her father cure it? It's been roughly a week since she was given the antiviral. The DDS is still in her body. The what? Essentially, taking blood from Hitomi Osawa now would allow someone to extract minuscule amounts of the antiviral. Kano was stunned. Suddenly, all these seemingly unrelated threads were beginning to form a pattern. So, since getting the antiviral itself out of the lab wasn't an option, Alfred must have thought of using a human vessel, he murmured. Which means the thing that Alfred's really after is... Kana nodded. Yes, Hitomi's blood, she finished. Alfred specifically requested that Hitomi make the ransom handoff, Kanan said. Additionally, the crime syndicate was hired to carry out a relay with the Itachi case containing the ransom money. This would disrupt the investigation and distract the police, allowing the kidnappers to target Hitomi in secret. Wait, no, hold on. There was something about this story that still made no sense to Kano. Tell me this, he said to Kanan. Why not use Tanaka? Why not use Tanaka for the vessel instead of Hitomi? Tanaka could enter the lab along with Osawa, then secretly inject himself with antiviral. It didn't seem like that would be terribly difficult. A good question. If getting the antiviral were the only goal, then that would be the most expedient means of doing it. Expedient. So then why use Hitomi Osawa? Kano asked. Kanan thought for a moment before answering. Tanaka may have objected to the idea of giving himself the drug. I hear that it can have some severe side effects. But she seemed unconvinced by her own words. Do you know why they targeted Hitomi? Kano demanded. I don't, but I'm sure there must be some reason. Alfred hadn't gone with using Tanaka, which would have been the sure thing. Instead, they'd gone with Hitomi. Hitomi was injected with the virus, brought into the lab, and used to sneak the antiviral out. Now, the plan was to extract the antiviral from Hitomi's blood. Huh. Something about this idea still struck Kano as incredibly odd. So wait, why not just abduct Hitomi from the very beginning? Why kidnap Maria instead? Had the kidnappers mistaken Maria for Hitomi? The two were twins after all, so it wasn't inconceivable, but... It's my fault that Maria was kidnapped. Kanan looked away. I contacted her before this all started. I told her about the kidnapping plan, and I gave her a GPS beacon to give to her sister, so that I could track Hitomi's location after she was abducted. But my plan backfired. Maria switched places with Hitomi and let herself get taken by Alfred. What the hell? Why hadn't Maria taken this to the police? Or if she was so determined to protect her sister, why not just get her to leave town or something like that? There must have been some sort of accident though, Kanan continued. The GPS was never turned on after the kidnapping, and I wasn't able to track Maria down. But there was something that even Alfred hadn't counted on. Kanan cast a glance over at Tateno. This person right here, she said. So Tateno had disrupted Alfred's plan by going after Hitomi himself. Considering where it's all led, Kanan continued, Alfred must be panicking about now. But we can't let down our guard. Even now, I'm sure the mastermind is thinking of some way to fit what this man has done into the master plan. So it's a perfectly imperfect plan. Is that what you're saying? Precisely. Kanan flashed Kano an approving grin. I heard that from Stanley, Kano said. The man who drove you to the hospital earlier. That case officer, huh? Case officer? So that was it. Stanley was CIA. Now that Kano thought about it, it all made sense. Since Alfred is an arms dealer with worldwide connections, I don't know what nation might be trying to obtain the antiviral. Obviously, any country that has the viral weapon would want to prevent their enemies from obtaining it. It's no huge surprise that people are butting in, trying to put a stop to Alfred's plan. A tiny beeping sound caught Kano's attention. Kanan pulled a PDA from her breast pocket. Interesting. The GPS it gave to Maria has just been powered on. Now I can find her location. Where is she? She's on the move. But why is the GPS suddenly active now? Kanan frowned. At any rate, I've told you what I know. Now tell me where Hitomi is. Alright. Kano got out his phone and called Stanley. The American was quick to pick up. What's going on? Where's Hitomi? We're on our way to Endo Electronics in Gonzaga. Endo Electronics? Why are you going there? Kano was familiar with the dilapidated old storefront. He had passed by the place countless times. Too long of a story. There's a lot that's happened, Stanley replied. How are things on your end? About as bad as they could be, but I'm getting closer to the truth. Please make sure you keep Hitomi safe. Alfred is after her blood. Her blood? Kano told Stanley what he'd heard from Kanon. I see. So that's what's going on. Once we're finished with things in Nogonzaka, I'll bring Hitomi right back to the precinct. Where is she? Kanon asked as soon as Kano had hung up. She's on her way to an electronics store in Nogonzaka. I see. Kanon checked Maria's location on her PDA. First I need to get to Maria, she said. I'll get to Hitomi after that. I'm going with you. Be my guest. With that, Kanon was off and running. Kano took one last glance at the unconscious Tateno, then hurried after Kanon as fast as he could. They ran from South Hill and Nampidai towards Shibuya Station. As they darted and weaved madly through the narrow side streets, Kanon took an occasional glimpse at her PDA. It felt to Kano like they must be taking the shortest possible route to Maria's location. He stayed quiet, keeping pace as Kanon led the way. Before he knew it, they were heading up Dogenzaka. In not too long, they'd be at Endo Electronics. Hey, Kano called out to Kanon. What? She shouted back without turning. Are you sure this is the right area? Are you doubting the GPS? Yes. No. No, it's not that. Kano scanned the area. It's just that Endo Electronics is right up ahead. What? Kanon stopped abruptly. What are you suggesting? The twins are heading for the same location. That's my guess. Still, what did that actually mean? Kano hadn't figured that out yet. They took off running again, and before long, Endo Electronics came into view. Kanon stopped in front of the shop door. Right here, she said, glancing again at her GPS. I knew it, Kano thought. Endo Electronics, the same place Hitomi was headed. Guess we're all winding up together, Kanon said. Or else we've been brought together. She peered keenly at the building and its surroundings. Kano swallowed hard. We? You think you've been roped into this too? Quite possibly. Kanon flashed a winning smile, then started to head into the shop. Hold on, I need to report in to HQ. Kano hurriedly called Kuze in a cell. Kano, what's going on? I've located Maria Osawa. Huh? What was that? Kuze's word came out as a surprised and childish yelp. Come on. Kanan's smile turned to a steely glare. Time is critical. He nodded silently back at her. Kano, what's the location? Kuze asked. Where are you? I can't say right now, sir. Please, just leave this to me. Hey, now just hold on. But Kano ignored the director's squawking and hung up. Kanan had already entered the shop. She seemed wholly unconcerned by the idea that she might be playing right into Alfred's hands. Despite her youth, she clearly thought of herself as quite capable. Warily, he followed after her. After navigating a veritable cavern of junk, they came to a door that led to the living area beyond. Kanan quietly opened the door and immediately stepped inside. The home was divided into a dwelling area and a workroom. A man's voice could be overheard from the workroom, raised in anger. Don't you want to save Suzune? Kano and Kanan crept closer. Peering through the next doorway, they saw a tense confrontation in progress. Maria and Stanley were standing there, looking down at a middle-aged man who had restrained Hitomi with a stun gun pressed to her throat. Ooh. Dad, of course I want to help Suzune. The young man stepped into view, speaking to the older fellow. Do you think this is what she'd want you to do? Kano watched intently, tensing for action. There was so much at risk here. He was about to barge into the workroom when Kanan grabbed him by the shoulder. Let's wait and see how this goes first, she whispered. He realized this was good advice. If they provoked the older man, things could very well take a sharp turn for the worse. They just have to hope the young man could talk him down. Come on, Hachi. Hachi. Hachi told Stanley and Hitomi what his father had done. As she listened, Hitomi hung her head, her face was sallow. I'm so sorry, Hachi told her. I'm not really sure what to say. He clenched his fist so hard his knuckles popped, struggling to keep his emotions in check. So, if I were rendered brain dead, you could help your sister, Hitomi murmured. Stop, Hachi said quickly. Please, don't say things like that. A sad look came to Hitomi's face, and she pressed her right hand to her heart. I mean, to find out like this. She turned to Hachi, tears glistening in her eyes. I want to help your sister, but... We have other things to worry about right now. This time it was Stanley who cut her off. Remember, Alfred is after you, Hitomi. Isn't that what Kanan told you? Yes, she said I was the mastermind's target. Hitomi wiped her tears away with her fingertips. So, Alfred and Hachi's father are after the same thing, Stanley said. Is that just a coincidence? It didn't sound like he thought so. Hold up, Hachi growled, leaning in from the back seat. Yeah, my dad's way out of line. But he did what he did for Suzune. He wouldn't work with terrorists. I'm not saying he's deliberately aiding terrorists, Stanley replied coolly. It's common sense that a pro wouldn't get an amateur involved with their plans. That makes it too likely that a clumsy misstep will cause things to fall apart. But then again, that's not the way Alfred thinks. So, actually, the likelihood of failure could well be part of the plan. She thought back to what Conan had said earlier. If you achieve your goals using accidental means, the outline becomes blurred, and it makes it harder for anyone outside looking in to grasp what the actual plan is. Not only have they put together a perfect plan, they purposely left certain tiny holes in it. So, if we assume the plan has failed, the slip-up might be exactly what Alfred wants, Stanley muttered. Sort of an intentional hole, then, Achi said. Stanley snorted. Conan told you guys that too, huh? If that's the case, then you really are a fool. What did you call me? Achi barked. If you'd known all along how formidable this opponent is, you should have given Hitomi over to the police custody right away. It's only a matter of dumb luck that either of you are still alive right now. Look, luck or not, me and Hitomi have managed to get by safely. That's all that matters. What exactly is the relationship between you two anyway? Are you guys dating? Achi and Hitomi exchanged glances. When Hitomi hesitated uneasily, Achi decided he better speak up. No, it's not like that. We just happened to run into each other earlier today. Guess I'm not the kind of guy who can abandon someone in trouble. Can't abandon someone in trouble, huh? You sure you're not just trying to make yourself feel self-important? There are plenty of people out there that you can't see who are also in trouble, who are also suffering. If you only help the ones close at hand, then what's the point, really? The world's a lot bigger than you can imagine, and there's a lot you're blind to. So what? If I see someone who's in trouble, I'm supposed to just ignore them? Nah, I can't do that. If I see someone who's collapsed from hunger, I'm not just gonna walk on by because there are people starving somewhere else in the world. I'd be all, hey, let me treat you to a beef bowl, or whatever. You couldn't have come up with a smarter example? Stanley replied with a tiny laugh. Okay, so I'm an idiot, Achi scowled. My bad. Stanley laughed again. Today's been an interesting day, he said. I was with another fellow earlier who was just like you. Meaning what? Was he an idiot too? Yeah, he was an idiot. Do all you Japanese have that problem? Hardly. My little sister's so smart she'd make your eyes pop out. Well, I'm sure relieved to hear that. If everyone in this country were as dumb as you guys, I might actually start to like this place. Huh? What does that even mean? Talk so I can understand, man, Achi shot back. But Stanley didn't respond. Instead, he stuck his head out of the car window, peering at the road ahead. They were close to Shibuya Station now, and the traffic had ground to a halt. Gridlock again, Stanley grumbled. It's probably better to walk the rest of the way to Indo Electronics. He pulled over on the side of the road. Achi got out of the car, feeling his guts knot up with worry. Pretty soon, he was going to have to confront his father. Stanley gave Achi a look. Are you scared about meeting with your father? I'm not scared. First things first, I'm gonna punch him right in the face. Then we can have ourselves a chat. Don't let your emotions get out of control. Your father might be one of the key players in this case. I don't give a damn about that. Achi took Hitomi by the hand and started walking. They'd gone up and down Dogenzaka so many times today already. But this was probably the last time he and Hitomi would make their way up the hill together. His anger rising, Achi picked up speed as he marched onward, wanting to confront his father as soon as possible. His father was wrong. Even if he was acting to save Suzune, he was absolutely wrong. A crime was a crime, regardless of the motive. This was a crime his father needed to atone for. And if he resisted, Achi would take him down, even if he had to use his fists. Even if I have to use my fists. A memory from long ago rose in Achi's mind. A pure white karate gi, thrusting out with his left hand. Daisuke collapsing to the floor. One of the many memories of his father that Achi could not forget. Kneeling before the memorial altar of his mother, Katone, Achi wept uncontrollably. He clutched his ohajiki tightly in his hands. Those thingies. Achi had always been rather clingy with his mother. When she was alive, she had often joined him for ohajiki, origami, and the like. On this particular day, Achi had come home miserable after getting bullied by the neighborhood kids for acting like a wimp. Achi. He turned to see his father holding 2 cups of shaved ice. Come here for a bit. They sat on the stairs together, eating their sweet frozen confections. You want to get tougher? Daisuke's words were soft and simple. How about you and me get tougher together? Achi looked up at his father, frowning in confusion. How are we gonna do that? Well, for starters, how about we learn some karate? Karate? Achi's face twisted up unhappily at the idea. He couldn't even imagine himself punching or kicking anyone. It'll be alright, his dad said. I'll go with you, don't you worry. Daisuke flexed one of his scrawny arms. His biceps bulged up a tiny bit. Achi was well aware that his father wasn't much of an athlete. There had been an athletics meet at his grade school. Even now, the memory of Daisuke tripping clumsily during the parent participation relay was burned into Achi's mind. I mean if you're gonna be there. So the two began training together at a local karate dojo. Achi put on his white gi and fastened his obi tightly. As he did so, he felt as if his feelings were being anchored in place as well. Ichi, ni, san! Achi's gi sleeves made a whooshing sound as he thrust out his fists in time with the sensei's chant. Even simple kata practice made him feel like he was getting stronger somehow. His dad, having left Suzune in the care of the neighbors, was working up a sweat alongside him. But he was out of shape, and his technique was shaky. He was soon exhausted and went to lean up against the dojo wall. Achi stepped out of the training circle and called out to his father. Dad, are you okay? Yeah, I'm just gonna take a little break. Daisuke sounded like he was on the edge of hyperventilating. Thanks, Dad. Huh? What for? For asking me to come take karate lessons with you. Achi was sure he never had dared to go to the dojo alone. Hey, just so long as you're liking it. Now go on, get back to training. With a deep bow, Achi resumed his kata practice. As they were walking home from the dojo, Achi turned to his father. How come you want to get stronger, Dad? He asked. I mean, you're not getting bullied by your friends. Daisuke was quiet for a few moments before answering. His words came out awkward and embarrassed. I was picked on a lot when I was your age too, Achi. I had a friend who would always come and bail me out. A friend? Yeah, a friend. A distant look came to his father's eyes. He was a real fighter. I always looked up to him. I wanted to be strong like him. His expression turned lonely. I don't get to see him anymore, though. Why not? Achi asked. Did he die? No, nothing like that. Then did you guys have a fight? Something like that. Daisuke smiled sadly. He stared out into the sky for a while before speaking up again. His name's Tateno. Huh? My friend, that's his name. Achi's father increased his pace. Come on, he said. We have to go and pick up Suzune. After that, despite Achi's questions, Daisuke would say no more about his old friend. By the time he was almost done with grade school, Achi had grown up fit and strong, almost unrecognizable from his younger self. Perhaps he'd had the physical knack in him all along. He was chosen as the representative for the boys' karate team, even managing to take second place in a national tournament. Nobody bullied Achi anymore. One time, Daisuke suggested that the two of them do some sparring. Achi might have been a national competitor, sure, but he was still a grade schooler squaring off against an adult. His father had been training for close to 2 years now as well, and his confidence had grown accordingly. Achi was excited to be able to face off against his old man. Early on in their karate training, Achi's kumite had seemed rather hopeless. He'd been shocked that his out-of-shape father was able to overpower him, but also pleased to get a sense of how strong the man was. This time, Achi thought, he might well lose again, but he was going to go all out. As they adopted their fighting stances, Daisuke's face was full of confidence. The instructor gave the signal to begin, and Achi opened with a sharp low kick. Daisuke didn't guard against this. The blow caught him in the thigh. It looked to Achi like he'd allowed himself to take the hit, not fearing the effect of a child's kick. Achi proceeded to unleash several more low kicks to the same spot. Bit by bit, Daisuke's face revealed his discomfort. Finally, he yanked his leg away. That was when Achi realized. His father wasn't letting himself get hit on purpose. He was just unable to keep up with the speed of his son's footwork. If that was the case, Achi felt bad about exploiting his dad's weakness. He decided to leave his leg alone. Instead, he aimed a punch at his father's midsection. He was shocked by the impact as the blow struck home. He hadn't attacked with a great deal of force. He'd just thrown a light midsection punch as a check. But as Achi pulled back his fist, Daisuke crumpled to the floor, writhing in pain as he clutched his gut. Achi stared in disbelief at his own hand. that was the last day that Daisuke went to the dojo. Your dad's pathetic. Yeah, he's such a loser. Achi was on his way home from practice, and some older students from the dojo had started ribbing on him. What did you just say? These kids were middle schoolers, but Achi wasn't about to back down. He thrust out a quick punch, stopping it just short of one boy's nose. Go on, say that again. I'll kick your ass. The older boys went pale, then took off and ran. But this small victory did nothing to bolster Achi's spirits. His father had looked so small and lonely, heading away after quitting karate. But Achi didn't think there was anything pathetic about that. Sure, maybe by now he was better at karate than his father. But really, what difference did that make? In growing stronger, he learned something. Using force to win out over someone else didn't mean anything. Strength alone didn't determine a person's worth. Achi loved and respected his father for going to the dojo with him. Beating him in a karate match didn't change the way he felt. Achi resurfaced from his memories to hear Stanley talking on his phone. I see, so that's what's going on. Once we're finished with things in Dogenzaka, I'll bring Hitomi right back to the precinct. Curious, Achi turned to the American. What was that just now? What was that about just now? Stanley's reply was clipped. I know what they're after now. With that, Stanley proceeded to wrap up his phone call. Guess I'm not going to get much out of this guy, Achi thought. By now, they could see Endo Electronics up ahead. Achi was about to hurry inside when Stanley stopped him. I'll go in first. You two wait out here. No way, this is my dad we're talking about. And you don't think it's dangerous to bring Hitomi right to him? Well, alright. We'll wait here for a bit, and once we know it's safe, we'll head on in. You cool with that? I'm cool with that. Stanley stepped inside. Achi fussed about impatiently, staring at the entryway. The palm of his clenched fist was sweating. Never before in his life had he wanted to just deck his old man. Hitomi watched him uneasily. Hitomi. Yes? I'm sorry. I really don't want to have to see this. Oh, God. Sorry, 1 second. I'm sorry, I really don't want you to have to see this, but I think you're about to witness the crowning shame in Endo family history. Achi, don't say that, Hitomi said. She squeezed his hand. He found his other fist unclenching. Please, you have to try to talk to your father. Yeah, I know. Suddenly there was a loud crash from inside the building. The time for waiting had passed. Let's go. Achi and Hitomi raced inside. Barging into the living quarters without bothering to shed his shoes, he heard his father's voice coming from the workroom. Dad! Achi hurried through the workroom door and saw Stanley holding his father pinned across the desk. Let me go, please, let me go. Daisuke thrashed both of his legs. Stanley, please, let my father go. I want to talk to him. Stanley snorted dismissively, but did as he was asked. Daisuke stood up, rubbing at his sore wrist. Dad, please, you have to tell me. Where's Maria? Maria? What are you talking about? Daisuke wouldn't meet his eyes. Don't play dumb with me. Achi pointed at Hitomi. You know who this is, don't you? Hitomi Osawa, the girl you've been after. Maria is her sister. But Daisuke remained silent. You're gonna pretend you didn't call the hospital? Nothing about maybe being able to get your hands on a heart? I mean, seriously? It's all so simple. Even I can tell what's been going on. You've been watching me and Hitomi through the surveillance cameras. And you were telling that guy with the cane where we were. The blood began to drain from his father's face. Don't you go quiet on me. If I'm wrong, then go ahead, tell me the truth. Daisuke's arm shot out suddenly, knocking an external hard drive from his desk onto the floor. It was over and done before Stanley could stop him. Stanley hunched down and picked up the shattered drive. I'm guessing there was important data on here. Footage from the cameras, maybe. I have no idea what you're talking about, Daisuke spat. You can't do this to an innocent person, Dad, Achi shouted, grabbing his father by the collar. There was a sound of footsteps from out in the shop. Someone was quickly getting closer. Stanley grabbed Hitomi by the hand and pulled her back against the wall. Achi stiffened as he turned his gaze to the door. Minorikawa. The TV news continued to report on how Mamoru Tanaka had been killed in the minivan explosion. What? What does this mean? What does this mean? Chiaki blinked in confusion. I mean, Hana told us herself that the van explosion was her father committing suicide. Didn't she? The only explanation I could think of, Minorikawa replied, is that Hana was lying. He scratched his head as he considered the situation. But why? Chiaki said. Ozu let out a snort. Well, it would seem Mr. Toyama had her lie in order to deceive us. What an upstanding individual, using his own daughter to buy himself some time. Norikawa wanted to yell at the guy, but he managed to hold his tongue. The important thing was that Toyama was still alive. And if he was still alive, then there was still a way to save Heaven Publishing. They'd get the current issue out on time, with a big scoop waiting in the wings for the issue after that. From there on out, it should be smooth sailing. Well, no matter, Ozu said. Seeing as Mr. Toyama isn't dead after all, we'll just wait here for him. He sat back down on the sofa. But Segawa leaned threateningly close. Threateningly toward Chiaki. Hey, he snarled. You sure you don't know where the guy's heading out? I don't, Chiaki shot back. And even if I did, I'd never tell you. Say what now? He leaned in even closer just as she stood on her tiptoes in defiance, and their foreheads collided with a dull thud. Both reeled back, clutching their heads in their hands. "Just calm down, Chiaki," Minorikawa said as he began reading through Toyama's desk. "For now, I'm going to look for clues to where Toyama might have gone. You just focus on working on your article." "Oh?" Ozu raised an eyebrow. "Getting all cooperative all of a sudden, I see. I want to change up the plan for next month's issue. And I can't do that without the editor-in-chief's approval." What Minorikawa was actually looking for, however, was a back issue of 4-star general gossip. He was pretty sure the article on Osawa had been printed in the magazine's inaugural issue. If he could find that scandalous piece that the scientist had asked for, he'd also be able to get his big lead about the power balance of the world being at stake. And if he could get that, not only would next month's issue be a sure thing, it was a good bet that sales figures would go through the roof. He found a file folder full of early material and quickly flipped through it. It didn't take him long to find the article. "Floundering Okoshi Pharmaceutical arranges marriage of political convenience." The large headline practically jumped off the page. Minorikawa quickly read over the story. The basic gist of it was this. The corporate director of Okoshi Pharmaceutical had sacrificed his daughter in order to keep a researcher named Kenji Osawa on board. The daughter, however, had previously been dating another man. It must be what Osawa wanted him to look into. The guy his wife had been dating before they were married. It should be easy enough to just ask whoever had written the article. Minorikawa's gaze jumped to the end of the piece, looking for the writing credit. The piece had been written by Toyama himself. "Hey, ain't you done yet?" Segawa yelled. "Tell us where Toyama is already." "Yeah," Minorikawa thought. "We're going to need to do something about these guys." "I'm still looking into it," he said. "Just hold on." He made a show of opening and closing various desk drawers. The drawers themselves were packed with a jumbled mess of electrical and gas bills. Noodle house delivery menus and the like. Wait. Yeah. "Look faster," Segawa growled. "No!" Recall the noodle house. Wait. I read the wrong one. Maybe he could mollify the guy by having some noodles delivered for dinner. "Hey, you guys hungry? I was thinking of ordering some soba." "Man, this ain't no time for that," Segawa snarled. "Besides, we just had some soba anyhow. And it was awful. Don't talk to me about noodles." Segawa launched into a shadowboxing session, as if trying to punch out the provider of his disappointing soba. The guy clearly had zero capacity for sitting still. Minorikawa had found the back issue of the gossip he was looking for. He still needed Chiaki's article, though, and she wasn't quite finished yet. He had to buy some more time. "By the way," he said to Segawa, Are you familiar with SOS? SOS? The thug paused mid-jab. "Yeah, SOS. I was planning on interviewing them later today. Hear they're some pretty tough guys." "Only one of them would be able to give me a fight. Would probably be that Achi Endo. Except as I hear it, he's left the gang." "Really now? Heard anything else interesting?" "Sounds like nowadays they've been run by some guy named Suzumu." The name Suzumu rang a bell. Those two young punks who'd been arguing after the van explosion had mentioned him. Seems like SOS is in a pretty rough state since Achi left, though, Segawa added. Minorikawa didn't miss a beat. What do you mean, rough state? Back in the day, they were all goody two-shoes, never shake folks down or steal or any of that stuff. Guess their founder Achi hated that sort of thing. But now that he's out, a lot of rough and tumble, hot-blooded types have been signing up with them. Smart move is not to get involved with SOS nowadays, really. Hard to find a scarier bunch around here when there's a lot of them together. And their main hangout, that's at Inferno, right? Yeah, over in Harajuku. Urahara. Man, you've been listening out on the streets. What gives? Harajuku, huh? Harajuku. Minorikawa smiled to himself. Inferno's location had practically fallen into his lap. Suddenly, Segawa's eyes went wide. Ah! So that's where Toyama is. Wait, nah. No way a coward like him would go to a place like that. Chiaki looked up from her keyboard. Look, can you please shut up? No, you shut up. That's my phone. Minorikawa pulled his cell out of his pocket. It was Toyama's name on the incoming call screen. Minorikawa's heart skipped a beat. Toyama, where are you? He blurted out as he picked up. Chiaki, Ozu, and Segawa turned to look at him as one. Well, what were you thinking, faking your death like that? Even if we could fill those pages and postpone repayment, all it would do is delay the inevitable. I'd still be up to my ears in debt. So I thought if I made it look like I was dead... Minorikawa let out an exasperated sigh. Well, everyone already knows you're still alive. So your little attempt at subterfuge didn't even wind up buying you time. What? Toyama's hysterical squeak was painful to hear. Alright, listen up, Minorikawa said. If it's the debt you're worried about, you'll be able to pay that back real soon. What do you mean? I've landed a huge scoop. You could do a print run of 1 million copies and still sell out if we could run it as an article. Toyama perked right up. Wait, you really mean it? I'll give you all the details. Just get your butt back here. But aren't those loan sharks there at the office right now? Fine, then I'll come to you. Tell me where you are. The two thugs crowded nearer, a predatory gleam in their eyes. Minorikawa had a flash of inspiration. Got it, he said quickly before Toyama could respond. Miyashita Park. I'm on my way now. Don't go anywhere. Ozu and Segawa grinned at one another, then bolted out the door. Minorikawa said as their footsteps receded. Those guys took the bait. I sent him to Miyashita Park. Watch him be at the park. He allowed himself a cocksure grin. Right then. So where are you really, Toyama? You imbecile! I am at Miyashita Park! What? Minorikawa fought the urge to pull his hair out. What the hell are you doing in some place like that? Why the hell did you tell them Miyashita Park? I thought it would be a clever ruse. Well, it wasn't. This is no time to be fighting, Chiaki butted in. Yeah, you're right, Minorikawa scowled. Anyway, Toyama, those guys are headed your way. We need you to get out of there and go someplace we could talk. I can meet you there. Right, okay. They needed someplace safe and public where they could speak freely. Someplace where the staff wouldn't be overly nosy. But where, Minorikawa thought. Noodle house? Noodle house. Recalling the noodle house from the menu he'd seen earlier, he opted for that. Dogen Hut, huh? Tama rumbled the words under his breath. What's the matter? Is there some problem with that? No. Alright, I'll meet you there. It's over in Dogenzaka. The address is on the menu. He hung up and Minorikawa quickly gathered his belongings. Chiaki, how's the copy coming along?
Well, almost done? Just a little more, I think.
Alright, bring your computer and come with me. I'll read over what you've got so far. Minorikawa waited as Chiaki got ready to head to the cafe. As the two were heading out of the office, however, someone else opened the door. You've got 14 minutes and 57 seconds left to send to press. 56. 55. A slender man with a gaudy necktie entered the room and sat down on the nearest desk, staring fixedly at his pocket watch. Minorikawa narrowed his eyes dubiously. Who the hell are you? Always make sure to show up 15 minutes ahead of the appointed time. That's just common decency. The man gave no indication he'd even heard Minorikawa's question. I suppose I can wait here, he continued. Just for another 14 minutes and 20 seconds.
Mr. Mino? Is that guy talking about our submission?
Chiaki stared doubtfully at the newcomer. Hey you, Minorikawa asked. Are you from the printer? But the man did not reply. Don't ignore me. Are you from the printer? Still, the man remained silent. Minorikawa was furious. Look, cut the crap, he roared. In response, the man quietly reached into his suit pocket and pulled out his business card. My name is not Hey You. He handed the card to Minorikawa. It read, Cho Nippon Printing Company Limited, Sales Department Division Number 1, Koichiro Katayama. I'm Koichiro Katayama, newly assigned to Heaven Publishing. A pleasure to meet you. My predecessor is in the hospital due to a car accident. Sachio Sui. He should make a complete recovery in about 2 months. Well, what are you doing here, Katayama? Minorikawa asked. I thought we had until 8 o'clock to complete proofreading. 8 o'clock? Surely you must be joking. Our company's proofing deadline is 5:30. Katayama stared fixedly back at Minorikawa. Now that had to be a joke. I heard from the editor-in-chief that it was 8 o'clock. I take that to mean, then, that you don't have any copy for us. It's not that we don't have it, Minorikawa said. It's just not finished yet. Just hold on until 8. Katayama raised an eyebrow. No. Publisher and printer need to work in concert. Perhaps my predecessor was the sort to delay the proofing deadline owing to your circumstances here. But now I'm in charge, and I do not make exceptions. The proofing deadline is 5:30 sharp, and I intend to keep it that way. And while we've been having this discussion, you're down to 12 minutes and 32 seconds. Katayama held out his pocket watch as if to emphasize his point. That's ridiculous, Minorikawa exclaimed. Just who the hell do you think you are? You guys are going to be printing a paper that I wrote. Do you even know how lucky that makes you? So you just wait, okay? Just give us... Just give us until 8, Just give us until 8 o'clock. That was the original understanding. It was unfair to change it now. 8 o'clock, huh? And where's your guarantee that you'll finish by then? We will, just trust me. I'm supposed to heedlessly trust the word of a man I've just met, Katayama mused. We're done to 10 minutes and 46 seconds, by the way. You son of a bitch. Don't get all high and mighty just because you work for the printer. High and mighty? I'd say it's the people on the publishing side of things that act high and mighty. Whatever high-minded claims you might make, but without us, you'd have nothing to put on the store shelves. Forgetting that and blithely ignoring your proofing deadline makes for more work on our end. Just what are you getting at, I wonder? Now it's 10 minutes and 20 seconds. Minorikawa ground his teeth so hard he could hear it. His usual tactics were useless here. Katayama was simply too unflappable to be browbeaten. If he backed down now, though, it was game over. 10 minutes and 7 seconds remaining. I realize there's little point, but I'll wait until the designated time. That's just common decency. Katayama's eyes were once again locked on his pocket watch. Well then. There was one more. Do you know when it where it was? Blah blah blah. It was no use. Minorikawa couldn't find a way to talk this guy around. Chiaki held her hand up.
May I say something?
Isn't it also common decency not to break a promise once it's been made? If you're referring to the 8 o'clock deadline, I was not the one who promised that.
Maybe not, but I believe your predecessor's responsibilities become your responsibilities.
Katayama crossed his arms and gave her a bemused look. What's your name, miss?
Chiaki, she said bashfully.
Chiaki Iso. The printer's expression brightened visibly. Good. That timid hesitation of yours is just splendid. You have none of the arrogance so typical among publishers.
Huh?
Chiaki was taken rather aback. In deference to your polite demeanor, I shall wait until 7 o'clock. That is the latest I can possibly allow. All right, Minorikawa shouted, practically in Katayama's face. We agree to those terms.
No, I wasn't talking to you.
But we've got terms of our own. I don't know who's talking. Katayama reeled ever so slightly. I'm not certain you're in any position to set terms here. Just shut up and listen. From here on out, you're coming with us. What? Why? We're going to finish up our copy on site, then bring the data onto CDs and hand it over to you there. That's why. Katayama let out a sigh of resignation. Very well. I suppose I'd simply be waiting here anyway. Minorikawa pumped his fists in victory. Alright, Chiaki. Go and copy the DTP data we've got so far onto your computer.
Sure thing, Mr. Mino.
Chiaki quickly set about copying the data from the editing department's desktop.
Okay, done.
Then let's go. With the others in tow, Minorikawa headed for the noodle house where Toyama would be waiting. The soba restaurant Dogen Hut was roughly halfway up Dogenzaka. Inside, they encountered the proprietress near the door. She held a massive cleaver for cutting soba noodles clutched in one hand. Toyama wasn't there. Excuse me, Minorikawa said. Has a middle-aged man come by your shop? Name's Toyama. The heck is this? The proprietress let out a weary sigh. That guy, huh? You folks know him? Yes, that's right. Then I'm sorry. I didn't want to have to do this. It was all his fault, though. You reap what you sow. Minorikawa didn't know what she was going on about, but suddenly he had a very bad feeling. So then, Toyama was here, he asked cautiously. Yes, he came by. Well, where is he now? Please tell me. No. I have no obligation to tell anything to friends of Toyama's. Evidently, there was some bad blood between Toyama and this woman. The real victim here is me! Her voice rose abruptly to a roar. Now listen up good to this old woman's story. I don't have time for this, Minorikawa thought. He needed to find Toyama as soon as possible. But instead it looked like he'd been stuck hearing out this angry woman first. Alright, we're listening. Tell us your story. It's a long one. The woman's mouth twisted up and she licked her lips. Leaning in to tell her tale. Long, long ago, when I was still in my 20s, I would often make deliveries to Heaven Publishing. They were some of my best customers. Back then, we were so busy my employees practically worked themselves to death. You see, Dogen Hut had the finest soba in Japan, and our spokesmodel was considered one of the most beautiful girls in the world. Back when this woman was in her 20s, Heaven Publishing hadn't even existed yet. But Minorikawa figured he'd better not correct her. That would probably just piss her off and make her stop entirely. He kept his mouth shut and listened to her silly tale. But anyway, that's all in the past now. As time went on, we had a lot of delivery customers asking us to put their bills on the tab. So much so that it became a problem, and we changed our policy to disallow that sort of thing. But the fine folks of Heaven Publishing considered themselves an exception to that rule. And that put my part-timer Masa, who does the deliveries, in a bit of a bind. Okay. Oh, Masa's a student at Midoriyama Academy. He was there with his girlfriend. He took the day off to go on a date with his girlfriend. I hear they're planning to compete as a couple in some ice cream eating contest that's going to air on TV. So they were going to a practice run together today. Honestly, how ridiculous is that? Honestly, I couldn't care less about Masa one way or the other, Minorikawa thought. This whole experience was turning into a real ordeal. So yes, we were in a real bind. I run a restaurant here, not a charity operation. I'd call and ask them to settle up, but they always insist, "Oh, we don't have any money." And that's a lie. It's got to be a lie. What else could it be? Otherwise, how could they keep making that magazine of theirs? That Celebrity Confidential, or whatever the hell it is. Celebrity Confidential was a weekly tabloid put out by one of Heaven Publishing's competitors. Minorikawa was just going to have to let that egregious mix-up slide. And that's not all, the proprietress spat. Oh no, on top of that, their magazine's little gourmet gabs corner, or whatever they call it, ran a scathing review of us. After that, customers started keeping their distance. And I aged 20 years practically overnight. Gourmet Gabs was a column that ran in Celebrity Confidential. There was nothing of the sort in 4-Star General Gossip. This woman had clearly gotten the two magazines mixed up somehow. Awful. Just awful, isn't it? All I wanted to do was make soba for people to enjoy. And so to be treated like this. To be treated like this. The woman had started to sob. The cleaver began to waver in her trembling hand. But then, earlier today, these two Yakuza-looking fellows came by. Said they were looking for Toyama from Heaven Publishing. Guess they saw one of our menus at his office and figured he might have come by. She had to be talking about Ozu and Segawa. They'd both been nearby when Minorikawa was rooting through the desk drawers. They must have spotted the menu then. I told them he wasn't here and hadn't ordered delivery in some time. So they said that if I happened to see him, to give him a call. Now, I was going to just turn them away. They look like a pair of nasty loan sharks. Toyama would never be able to pay off his tab if they caught him. And so I told them as much. The proprietress lowered her voice before continuing. But they said they'd be most appreciative if I could let them know. Even offered to pay his tab for me if I did. And well, that pretty much settled it. So I let them give me their phone number. Minorikawa's face went pale. This lady had been bribed by those two thugs. And so I guess you figured it out. A little earlier, Toyama dropped by looking like he was trying to lie low. So it all came together. I snuck out back and gave those two a call. And so here we were. Here we are. You guys were just a hair too late. Ah, crap. Toyama had been carted off by the moneylenders. Minorikawa had to find him right away.
Mr. Mino, Chiaki squeaked nervously. We have to hurry and go look for him.
Yeah. Minorikawa and the others headed for the door. Wait! The voice sounded as if it had echoed up from the very depths of hell. Minorikawa and company stopped in their tracks. You think I can just let you go? The old woman began to stalk towards them. Those guys. They left without showing their appreciation or paying off that tab. They lied to me. And so, just who's going to show me the appreciation I'm owed? Who's going to pay that tab? You're all in this together, trying to play me for a fool. But hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. The proprietress lifted her cleaver high. Her eyes smoldered with inhuman rage. A murderous aura surrounded her like a bonfire wind. Wait, Minorikawa cried. We're Toyama's... his friends? Then prepare yourselves. You'll repay his debt to me with your lives. The three companions stood paralyzed with horror, watching their bloody doom approach. The blade glimmered in the dimness as she swung it toward Minorikawa. Time for some fresh meat. Minorikawa, Chiaki, and Katayama screamed, their cries echoing clear across Dogenzaka. Turned into corpse party. Hey, Osawa. The rain won't let up. The sound is growing louder and louder inside my head. It is the sound of regret spattering against my heart. My emotions surge like a terrible storm within me. I never wished for this. Never expected my heart to be dragged so far beyond my control. We can't save Moria. We can't save Moria. We can't save Moria. The words stormed through Osawa's mind in a relentless cacophony. He'd call up images of the bodies from the human testing trials on his computer monitor. He couldn't help but imagine his daughter in the same gruesome state. In just a few more hours, Maria would begin hemorrhaging blood and die just like the people in those pictures had. We can't save Maria. We can't save Maria. We can't save Maria. He couldn't shake the words or the reality from his mind. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Osawa began pounding his fists fiercely on the desktop. Sir, what are you doing? Hajiwada tried to intervene, but he kept on pounding away. When he finally ceased, the pain of the repeated impacts lingered in his hands. My research was never about any sincere desire to help people, and now I'm paying the price for that. The one time it finally matters, I can't even save my own daughter. Mr. Osawa, Kajiwara set a hand on his shoulder. You can always blame yourself later, but for now, think again, good and hard. Is there really no other way to save Maria? Nothing else we could try? Osawa shook his head. The only means we had left was using Tanaka's password to unlock the doors. And now Tanaka is dead. There's no other way. Is there a possibility that Mr. Tanaka told somebody else's password? This was something Osawa hadn't considered. He told me? Was there anyone Tanaka might have shared his password with? Only one person came to mind. Well, yes, there may be someone. You're referring to I, sir. Kajiwada cast his eyes down. You figured that out, then? Yes. Factoring the commotion over that listening device. A necktie clip isn't typically the sort of present one gives to one's husband's coworker. And yet, although some might consider it somewhat inappropriate, Mr. Tanaka was wearing it as if it were a matter of course. Which, implies something about the relationship. Kajiwada's voice trailed off. He coughed apologetically and tried again. I realize it's an awkward situation, sir, but please check with your wife. Even if I does happen to know the password, that does us no good if Maria gets quarantined someplace we can't reach her. I understand, Mr. Osawa. I'll bring Maria to you then. I'll do everything in my power to make that happen. The detective then produced a bunch of bananas from his pocket. These are all left over. You're more than welcome to them, sir. Despite his gentle smile, the rest of his face was firm with resolve. You said you didn't care whether other people understood you, didn't you, Mr. Osawa? Osawa nodded guardedly. At the risk of being presumptuous, sir, I understand you, Kajiwada said. I used to be quite the workaholic myself. You're just like me, innocent and awkward. Look just like him. Calling yourself innocent, huh? How modest of you. Osawa let out a sardonic chuckle, and after a moment Kajiwada joined in. The next time I see you, Mr. Osawa, I'll have Maria with me. The detective gave a slight bow, then left the study, a look of determination on his face. Osawa watched him go with admiration. No matter what trouble arose, the man always looked for something he could do. He really was a fellow who knew how to hang tough. Compared to that, I'm just... Osawa couldn't even articulate his own self-disgust. And asking Ai about the password would also mean inquiring into her relationship with Tanaka. The prospect was daunting. Venturing into the emotional territory of another person was his weakest suit. He left his study, but somehow found himself making his way to Maria's room, not Ai's. He realized that he hadn't been into his daughter's room since a certain rainy day years before. Now he stepped quietly inside and saw Maria's world laid out before him. A small photo was set atop her neat and tidy desk. It was a close-up of someone's hands doing a cat's cradle. Whose hands were they? From the skin tone, they didn't appear to be Maria's. Several more photographs were pinned to a corkboard that hung on the wall. They were snapshots of people and townscapes from the Middle East. One glanced at them, and Osawa felt like he was back there for a moment. Images weren't necessarily aesthetically pleasing, but they all looked like they'd been taken by a professional. When he spotted the last photo on the corkboard, however, he was certain that Maria had taken them all. The last picture was of Osawa himself. He was facing the camera, holding some luggage and flashing an awkward smile. It was a comical, affectionate image. He'd never known that photography was one of his daughter's hobbies. No, this went beyond a mere hobby. Did she perhaps aspire to be a professional photographer one day? She certainly had the aptitude for it, from the look of things. Maria, a photographer. As he mulled the idea over, Osawa felt his chest tighten. Right now, it looked like Maria's hopes and dreams were about to be snuffed out. Her future consisted of bleeding to death a few short hours from now. Osawa stared vacantly out the window. The view from Maria's room remained unchanged from so long ago. Again, that rainy day crept back into his mind, as vivid as the present. On that day, Osawa was dealing with some pressing business from work. He'd ensconced himself in his study, wrestling with some paperwork when Hitomi barged in, looking distraught.
Maria's gone!
Sensing that Hitomi was legitimately alarmed, Osawa hurried to Maria's room. He found a letter she had left atop her writing desk.
Dad, you only care about Hitomi. You're always working and never do anything with me, so I'm running away.
A few hours earlier, he'd canceled their weekend trip to the amusement park. He just wasn't going to be able to get his work done in time. Hitomi had resigned herself readily enough, but Maria just couldn't accept it. She'd been looking forward to it for so long she railed at him. How many times now had he broken one of his promises to her? Hitomi understands why we can't go.
So why can't you do the same?
Meh. The cold rebuke had ended her complaining, but it was clear she still didn't accept the situation. Now, Hitomi helped him look around, but they found nothing missing from Maria's room. Despite her assertion that she was running away then, it seemed like there was no point in being overly concerned.
Maybe she's at the park she always goes to.
Hitomi looked worried. The park was roughly a 25-minute walk from the house. It would only take about an hour for Osawa to go get her and bring her home. But an hour was more than he could afford to spare right now.
Dad, I think she's waiting for you to go after her.
Osawa didn't need Hitomi to tell him that. He knew it well enough. That was what galled him so much about the situation. Why did she have to pull something like this precisely when his work was at its busiest? He'd done everything he could as a father since his wife had passed away. Why couldn't his daughter see that? It's all right. Your sister will come back. The rain was coming down pretty hard outside the window.
Do you think she brought an umbrella? Hitomi asked anxiously.
I don't know, but with the rain like this, she'll come back home soon enough. He spoke the words for himself as much as for Hitomi. Then he headed back to his study and got back to work. But several hours went by, and still Maria did not return. The rain had gotten even more intense, to the point where Osawa could hear it in his study. He was so concerned about his missing girl that he couldn't focus on his work, but he stubbornly refused to give in and go search for her. Several more hours passed. At last, Maria appeared at the front door, soaking wet. Osawa met her silently in the entryway. Wet strands of hair clung to the girl's forehead as she looked up at her father with a bitter glare.
You don't care what happens to me, do you?
Immediately, Osawa smacked her across the cheek with the flat of his hand. It was the first time in his life he ever struck anyone. He hadn't known such a violent impulse could exist inside him. Maria stood there, her hand pressed to her cheek. Tears welled up in her eyes. She began to tremble. On her lip was a small bead of blood. A flood of guilt and regret rose up inside Osawa, as if he just shattered some intricate piece of glasswork. How could I do such a thing? He clenched his shameful hand into a fist. And in that moment, he was afraid of Maria. Afraid that his daughter could bring such raw emotion out of him and make him do something so thoughtless. But even more, he was afraid of how stunted he was as a human being. Was someone like him really fit to be a parent? What kind of future could Maria and Hitomi hope for with a father like him? That was why he married Ai as Makino had proposed. Having a mother, he decided, would help keep the family together despite their sad excuse for a father. But in so doing, Osawa had dug a psychological ditch between himself and his daughters. A deep ditch, so that he could keep his daughters from being hurt. So that he wouldn't hurt himself. Now Osawa was staring across that ditch, wondering if it was too wide to leap. He thought back to his earlier exchange with Kajiwara. If you get angry, you show it. If you get sad, you show it. It's human nature to let other people know how we're feeling, after all. But what if doing that hurts the other person? That's when you apologize, sir. Yes, that was right. He needed to apologize to Maria for what he'd done that day. It still wasn't too late. It's never too late. When it comes to family, there's no such thing as game over. He recalled Pretty Honey's words. He needed to apologize to Maria, and so he needed to ask Ai for the password. Osawa was going to have to face his wife. Minorikawa. Where should we meet? Cafe. The familiar cafe by the station was a natural choice. He quickly described the location. Okay, Toyama said. Cafe Le Trek, got it. I'll see you there. He hung up, and Minorikawa quickly gathered his belongings. Shocky, how's that copy coming along?
Well, almost done.
No, waited as Chucky got ready to head to the cafe. Give us until 8. They reached Cafe Le Trek without incident, and Minorikawa promptly spotted the publisher. "Over here," Toyama hissed, eyeing his surroundings with obvious unease. Hana sat by his side, sullenly sipping on some juice. The waitress came over as Minorikawa joined them. "May I take your order?" she asked. "Water." "Just water, sir." "Fine, make it a double." Exasperated, the waitress headed back to the kitchen. Toyama looked over at Katsuyama. "Who's this guy?" "I'm Koichiro Katsuyama from Cho Nippon Printing." Katsuyama presented his business card. Toyama turned to Minorikawa with a quizzical look. "What's someone from the printer doing with you?" "I'll explain later." "There's no time for that right now," Minorikawa replied. "First, I need you to answer some questions. Does the name Kenji Osawa ring any bells?" "Osawa?" Toyama closed his eyes and thought. "He heads up a laboratory at Akoshi Pharmaceutical. You ran a piece on him in the first ever issue of 4-Star General Gossip." Toyama's face lit up with recognition. "Ah, yes, that political marriage piece." "Yeah, that one. Do you remember the details from that article?" "Of course. Who do you think I am?" Toyama puffed himself up proudly. "I used to be local news copy editor for the Central Times. I've got the details for all the stuff I've ever covered here in my head." "In that case, do you know who Kenji Osawa's wife was dating before they got married?" Toyama blinked his eyes vacantly. "Hey, what's the matter?" Minorikawa asked. This is a pretty tough pop quiz you're giving me."
Surprise, kids! It's time for a science quiz! What colorless, odorless gas, lighter than air, and used for consumer and municipal gas applications, is also known as marsh gas or swamp gas? Helium and then what colorless, odorless gas, lighter than air?
Marsh gas, swamp gas. If it's odorless, the second one? Ethylene? Huh. Cut the crap, man. You just said you have all the details inside your head. Oh, they're in there all right. They're just not coming out. Minorikawa slumped. "Mr. Toyama, please. Whether or not you'll be able to pay off your debts depends on your memory here." Hearing this, Hana cast a cold glare up at her father. Alright. I can remember. Or I can at least try. Toyama folded his arms and hummed to himself, his gaze turned inward. So... I feel like it was a really common name.
Sato, Shiaki chirped. Yamada. Was it either of those? They're pretty common names.
But Toyama shook his head. Norikawa offered a guess of his own. Tanaka. Tanaka. No, not that. It was something else. Just then, the television inside the cafe switched on to a news report on the Shibuya explosion. The remains of the individual discovered within the minivan itself, who has since been discovered as a pharmaceutical company executive, Mamoru Tanaka. Mamoru Tanaka? Toyama turned around to look at the TV. An image of the victim's face appeared on the screen. "Buh!" the publisher blurted, nearly falling out of his seat. "That's it! It was him, right there! Mamoru Tanaka! That's what I said, Tanaka!" Toyama pointed excitedly at the TV screen. That's who Kenji Osawa's wife was dating before they got married. Mamoru Tanaka. Norikawa felt himself getting goosebumps. The victim of the terrorist bombing in Shibuya was also linked to the researcher who was key to a terrorist viral scare. His reporter's hunch was now a certainty. Right now, Shibuya was at the center of some massive conspiracy. This went far beyond even a major scoop. Mr. Toyama, we need to make sure the next month's issue hits shelves. Norikawa called up Kenji Osawa to let him know the results of his little investigation. Jump. Osawa's phone rang and Minorikawa's phone number popped up on the LCD display. The reporter must have finished looking into the matter Osawa had asked about. Mr. Osawa, sorry to keep you waiting. How did it go? Well, I looked into the background of the story you asked about, and I learned who it was your wife was dating. Who was it? Osawa asked immediately. There was a brief pause. Mamoru Tanaka. I see. Finally, he had proof positive of a relationship between I and Tanaka. Now, more than ever, it was no time to waver. No matter how painful the reality was, it was also true that if he hadn't been dating, there would have probably been no way of saving Maria. So, Minorikawa said, what was this big thing about disrupting the power balance of the world all about? There's something I need to take care of on my end first. Once I'm finished, I'll tell you everything. Yeah, that's fine. Things are pretty hectic on my end right now, anyway. Osawa had expected Minorikawa to put up more of a fight. He figured a reporter for 4-star journal gossip would be a bit more persistent. By the way, there was one other thing I wanted to tell you, Mr. Osawa. Osawa could practically sense the finger pointing his way from the other end of the line. Don't be too angry with your wife. All too often in this world, people let their anger get in the way of solving their problems. You may have a point. Osawa let out a wry chuckle. Alright then, I'll call you back later. Osawa found Ai standing by herself in the yard. She kept her back to him as he approached. May I have a moment? He asked quietly. What? Still, she didn't bother to turn around. There's something important I need to talk to you about. I'm not in the mood right now. Please, I realize you're upset about Tanaka's death, but... At the mention of Tanaka's name, I slowly shook her head. Don't. Just tell me what you want. Hurry up and get to the point. Osawa tried to move closer to her, but she pointedly kept her distance. No time to mince words. This was no time to mince words. Did Tanaka give you his password? His password? For the electronic lock on the lab. I need it in order to get the antiviral out. I turned to face him at last. To get it out? What are you thinking? That belongs to the company. I just need one dose to save Maria. Please, if you know, please tell me. I don't know it. Ai's voice was barely a whisper. Osawa looked his wife right in the eye. You're telling the truth. I am. I see. Then, do you have any idea what number he might have used for a password? Ai shook her head silently, then turned her back to her husband once more. Even if I did know, she said, I wouldn't tell you. Why not? Don't you get it? Ai's words came out as a strangled rasp. Do you even know why I'm with you? She snapped. You really have no idea how much you're worth, do you? The value of one woman's life versus the potential profits your research would bring in. There's no comparing the two. If it meant that Okoshi Pharmaceutical could monopolize your talents, then what did it even matter what I wanted for myself? There was something akin to desperation in Ai's voice, Ai's words. And so you sent me those threatening emails, too. What? I looked at him in shock. He knew he guessed correctly. He would go that far. Just to keep me tied to your father's business. That's right. I would. I bit down on her lip hard. But what would you even know? About how I feel? I'm sorry. Don't apologize. I'm not the victim here. You say that, but isn't it because of me that you and Tanaka weren't able to stay together? I began to tremble. Her secret was out. When did you figure it out? She asked. Earlier today. That tie clip. Right. Not the sort of gift one gives to a husband's co-worker, is it? Ai's smile was bitter with self-deprecation. Osawa couldn't help but pity her. Even Tanaka must have suspected that she placed the company's profit above all else, if she'd go to such lengths to protect it. It was like she'd given up her entire life just for that. Please, don't mess my life up any more than you already have. Ai's words were only a faint murmur, but Osawa felt the rejection they carried with agonizing clarity. Tanaka hadn't given Ai his password. Osawa's last chance had gone up in smoke. He let out a long, shaky breath and shut his eyes tight. Was it true? Was there nothing more he could do? Norikawa... Common name... Endo... Endo... And then jump... The workroom door slowly eased open. Maria! Ai Achi was too shocked for words. The girl who entered looked just like Hitomi.
Maria! Hitomi!
Achi blinked in bewilderment. It was almost as if Hitomi were standing in front of a mirror. The two girls looked so similar.
Maria, thank goodness you're all right. I'm so sorry I had you worried.
Maria was safe, Achi realized. At last, he had managed to fulfill his duty. How did you manage to get out of the storeroom? Daisuke had gone pale. Tell me, Maria said sharply. Who was it who came up with this kidnapping plan? Suddenly, Daisuke shoved Maria aside and lunged for Hitomi. Stanley moved to stop him, but before he could intervene, the older man had a hold on Hitomi, pressing something that looked like a flashlight up against her neck. Dad? She started toward him, but Stanley held up a hand. Don't move, that's a stun gun. If he zaps her in the neck, it could kill her. You know your stuff, Daisuke said. You deal in American electronics? No, I do this for a living. Stanley drew his gun in an instant, taking aim at Daisuke's forehead.
Wait, hold on.
Wait, hold on. Achi interposed himself between Stanley and his father. Dad, let Hitomi go. You need to stop this nonsense. Achi walked slowly toward his father, a pleading look in his eyes. Nonsense? Which one of us is talking nonsense here? You don't know what's going on. If you knew everything, then you'd be helping me. What do you mean, everything? With this girl's heart, we can save Suzune. Dad, who was it exactly that told you that? Daisuke did not reply. I asked you a question. Who was it that put that crazy idea into your head? A foreign organ trafficker I met at the hospital, Daisuke muttered. Stanley let out a snort. A likely story. It's true. I was suspicious at first myself, Daisuke said stubbornly. But I couldn't just sit around and wait for Suzune to die. And after talking to him about her rare blood type and all the difficulties in performing a transplant, he promised he'd do everything in his power. Daisuke's hands were trembling. Tears welled up in his vacant and bloodshot eyes. Then a while later, he got back in touch and told me he'd found a potential match. Someone with the same blood type as Suzune and roughly the same age. But then he told me that the girl was still alive. And so what was the point? Her heart might be a match for Suzune's, but it didn't matter if we couldn't get our hands on it. And I said that, but then the man told me. He told you what? Achi bit his lip. He told me to abduct her and turn her over to him. After that, he'd find a way to make it all work. At last, Daisuke had confessed. Now Achi had to try to come to grips with the truth he had just heard. I had to do something, his father continued vehemently. I had to abduct this girl and see things through. I just couldn't take it. Katone had already been taken from me. The thought of losing Suzune, too. I had to make sure I didn't fail. So it was this organ trafficker who came up with the kidnapping scheme then, Stanley said. He kept his gun aimed at his target. Daisuke nodded. Describe him for me. He was tall, had black hair, spoke fluent Japanese. Stanley raised an eyebrow at that. Achi wondered if he had some idea who it might be. And taking Maria Asawa hostage in order to lure out Hitomi. That was his idea as well. Yes, that's right. I allowed his computer to access my surveillance camera system as well. But then, this morning, I got a call from the hospital saying Suzune's condition was critical. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to help my girl right away. And then... Daisuke cut himself off, reaffirming his grip on his stun gun. I was looking at the surveillance monitor and I saw a detective I happened to know. He was right next to the girl here, and so I decided to ask him. I knew if I did, he wouldn't refuse. He could never refuse a request from me. And that was the man with the cane? Ashi asked. His voice was low and hoarse. Yes, I was giving him directions while I followed you on the monitors. Dad, you need to let go if you tell me now. There's no point to this. Achi took another step closer to his father. There is a point. If I kill this girl here and now, your sister can get the surgery she needs. But even Achi knew that things couldn't possibly work out that way. His father had grown so desperate to help Suzune that he'd lost all sense of judgment. Why, Achi? Why won't you help me? Don't you want to save Suzune? Daisuke made a pathetic sight. And yet his desperation to save his child was so palpable it was heartrending. Achi thought back to the time he laid his father out inspiring. No matter how pathetic he may have looked, Achi had always felt the sense of paternal love from him. You're not going to be able to talk him down, Stanley murmured. Achi shook his head. Stanley, he said, lower your gun. Tears were welling up in his eyes. Please. Lower your gun. Hearing the determination in Achi's voice, Stanley quietly complied. Achi stepped up to Daisuke, getting a firm grip on his father's slender shoulder. Dad, of course I want to help Suzune. Then why are you trying to stop me? Dad, do you think this is what she'd want you to do? Daisuke's face fell. Did Suzune ask for this, Dad? Did she tell you to take someone else's heart so she could live longer? Did she, Dad? Suddenly the fight seemed to ebb from Daisuke's body. The stun gun hung limply in his hand. If Suzune asked me to go and get someone's heart for her, I wouldn't object. I'd help her, just like she wanted. I wouldn't let you bear these crimes by yourself. But that's not what this is it? Suzune would never ask us to do something like this, would she? By now, tears were streaming down Achi's cheeks. He knew that his father thought about Suzune more than he thought of anyone else. And so he should know full well that she would never want this. Suzune's not like me. She's smart, she's kind, and she'll never be happy about taking someone else's heart. Even if it saved her life, I'm sure she'd never accept that. She wouldn't be able to live with it, knowing something so horrible had happened to someone else for her sake. Isn't that the Suzune we know? Daisuke's cheeks were smeared with tears now as well. But then we're not going to be able to help her. The sound of father and son weeping echoed through the workroom. Maybe so, maybe we won't. But that's better than the misery and suffering you'd have to live with. Daisuke slumped to his knees on the floor, collapsing like a crumbling mound of sand. Hitomi, freed from his grip, stood motionless. There were tears in her eyes, too. You're such an idiot, Dad. Such a complete, utter idiot. Sobbing, Achi embraced his father. There was a sudden thud from near the door. Everyone turned to look. Maria had crumpled to the floor.
No!
And a newcomer had appeared. At some point, Kanan had silently entered the room. Now she cradled Maria in her arms. Standing in the doorway was a man Achi didn't recognize, his face pale. "Stay back," Kanan shouted at Achi when he tried to approach. It looked like Maria had fallen unconscious. Achi's heart was racing in his chest. An eerie silence fell over the room. For several seconds, no one said a word, their eyes all fixed on Maria. Finally, Kanan looked up, her face ashen. "It's starting."
No.
Raykawa. Tanaka. The man didn't seem terribly surprised. Probably he'd had his suspicions all along. Asawa told him that there was something he needed to do before he was ready to give details on the big scoop, but that he would call back later. In the meantime, Minorukawa knew he'd have his hands full getting the current issue of the Gossip wrapped up for the 7 o'clock deadline. He slapped his hands down on the table. "Alright, emergency editing meeting right here," he announced. "We need to get a lead-in on the Shibuya terrorist bombing into the next issue. The article about the twins winning the beauty contest can be dropped for that. We'll use the info from Kenji Osawa as the basis for our big scoop in the issue after that. Mr. Toyama, any problems with that?" "No, that should be fine. But what about the remaining pages for next month's issue?" Norikawa opened the file on his computer. The layout built in the DTP came up on the monitor. The report on the Burning Hammer sales demo. The surveillance camera opinion piece. The interview with Arai. Those 3 were finished, a copy already incorporated into the layout. Once Chiaki's street interview piece was loaded in, that one could be checked off as well. "Chiaki, how's your copy coming along?"
I'm sorry. I just need a little bit longer.
The writing seemed to still be giving her a fair bit of trouble. The article on SOS was still just a placeholder in the layout. And Minorukawa hadn't even gotten any material for that, putting it even further behind than Chiaki's street interviews. Still, he'd at least learned where Shibuya's legendary street gang made their hangout. He'd just have to take the risk of dropping in on them unannounced to ambush them with some interview questions. And then there was the lead-in for Shibuya bombing. It wasn't even in the layout yet. It was a completely blank slate. Against all odds, they were going to need to put that article together from nothing but just an hour and change. It was an impossible amount of work for just him and Chiaki to do. Well, well, well. And how are things coming along? Katayama rose and came closer, trying to peer at the monitor. Norikawa hurried to cover the screen. Don't look. If the printer rep saw all the blank pages, he might decide to stop waiting. Would you mind telling me roughly what percent of the total you've completed thus far? What percent? Come off it, man. We're at 100%. If you're 100% done, that implies that you're all finished. Could I please have the data then? No. I'm saying our willpower is at 100%. I'm not even going to pretend I understand what you mean by that. Shaking his head, Katsuyama sat back down in his chair. Norikawa, Toyama asked, his expression uneasy. So I know I asked before, but why is someone from the printer here again? Katsuyama promptly chimed in. The long and short of it is that your proofing deadline has been changed to 7 o'clock, he said. What? But that's impossible! Who's doing the lead-in for the Shibuya bombing? Toyama eyed Norikawa and then Shiaki. Both stared back non-committedly. And it really is impossible. We'll never meet the deadline. We don't have enough people. No, we do have enough. Norikawa thrust out his finger. Mr. Toyama, you're going to write that one and handle the layout. What? Heaven Publishing is your company. Won't you step up in order to protect it? Toyama hung his head. Even if I headed to the scene right now, I'm sure the other outlets have already gotten their coverage. I wouldn't be able to find anything new to write about. He does not care. And so you're just going to give up? A moment later, Toyama was on the floor, Norikawa glaring down at him. We've always said you wanted to tell the world about the things the mass media can't or won't write about. So what the hell difference does it make if they're already gotten the sound bites thereafter? Norikawa's voice was raw with emotion. Don't you dare give up. Not that easily. Get your ass out there. Find something that only you can write about. Norikawa. Toyama began to object, then he glanced over at Hana. There was an imploring look in her eyes as well. I get what you're saying, Toyama grumbled. But still, you're expecting a lot. But then, despite his words, he flashed a broad grin. Yeah, Norikawa let out a quiet chuckle. And it's got you all fired up. Yeah, I'm fired up, alright. Toyama's face shone with a resolve Norikawa hadn't seen in a long time. There we go, that's the Toyama I know. You know, I'm really sorry. Now I see the huge burden I put on you. But damn it, it's going to be alright. Getting to his feet, Toyama took his daughter by the hand and strode boldly out of the cafe, looking like a changed man. Norikawa watched them go, glad the dithering was over. Even if Toyama was still in his prime, he'd been cutting it close to do the article in an hour. But he would pull through somehow. When it came to taking care of Hana, the man would rise to the occasion again and again. Father and daughter disappeared into the crowd, hand in hand. Norikawa shook himself out of his reverie. All right, he cried. Despite the clear blue sky, an unexpected gust of wind blew across his cheek. Come on, guys, we gotta get going too. Things might look grim, but he wasn't going to give up until the bitter end. It was time to head to the SOS hangout, Inferno. The three ran along and hard after leaving the cafe. If the proofing deadline was 7 o'clock, then they needed to finish up with SOS by 6:30 at the latest. The gang's hangout was in Ura Harajuku. Running all the way there on foot was going to eat into too much of their time. The traffic was at a near standstill for some reason, and there wasn't a taxi in sight. There's one right there. How long do you plan on running like this? Katayama called out, panting. Just take a look at the road. With this traffic, there's no point in hailing a cab. Even Minorikawa was feeling the time pressure now. We're just gonna have to keep running until the road's clear. What? Katayama wailed. Stop your whining. Just keep quiet and stick with me. He'd finally gotten Toyama to find his willpower again. Next month's issue would come out on time, and no way was some printer guy going to mess that up now. But the traffic showed no signs of abating. Catching a cab wasn't going to be an option. Fighting an ever louder echo of despair, Minorikawa kept up his desperate headlong rush. Still, there were limits to how far the mind could push the body before exhaustion set in. Eek! No. Oh god. Oh no. As they were running across a pedestrian overpass, Chiaki slipped and took a nasty fall. She skinned her knee hard enough to draw blood. Hey you, Minorikawa snapped at Katayama. Don't just stand there. Help the poor girl already. Katayama scurried over to Chiaki. I'm sorry, Mr. Mino. Chiaki's voice bubbled with suppressed tears. Maybe it was cruel to make her run with her computer all the way to Urajuku. But the copy for her interview still needed to be looked over. They couldn't just leave her here. Minorikawa hesitated, undecided. Even at a full run, they wouldn't make it in time. And with traffic the way it was, there was nothing they could do. You now have... Katayama consulted his pocket watch. Exactly 1 hour remaining. Damn it! Minorikawa raged. What do we do? Relentlessly, the clock ticked on. Katayama has no soul, I swear. Unfamiliar name. After the young man's desperate pleading, the other fellow, apparently his father, finally gave in. He released his hold on Hitomi. The tension in the room was replaced by a solemn air of gravitas. Seeing father and son weeping as they spoke made Kano think back to his conversation with Tateno before the stakeout. What was it in people that drove them to do such horrible things? Sometimes it was a desire to save the ones they loved. Even such a heartfelt human emotion could drive someone to wrongdoing. Why? Why did people have to be like that? A sudden thud snapped Kano out of his musing. An instant later, Kanan hurried past him into the workroom. Maria had collapsed on the floor, and now Kanan was beside her. In a panic, Kano rushed into the workroom as well. Stay back, Kanan shouted as the others tried to huddle around the fallen girl. Please don't be what I think this is. Had the virus gone symptomatic? 2 hours ago, Stanley had told Kano that Maria was affected. He'd also said that her symptoms wouldn't develop for another 4 hours. Shouldn't they still have 2 more hours to go? Maria looked like she was dead, her eyes closed, her body motionless. Hitomi tried to approach despite Kanan's warning.
Maria! She cried. Maria, what's wrong?
Kano held his arms wide to hold her back. Your sister has been infected with the Ua virus.
The Ua virus?
Hitomi's face went pale. Hey, Kano said to Kanan. Should you really be that close? If she's developed symptoms. But Kanan didn't move from Maria's side. She calmly rested her hand on the other girl's forehead. There's no fever, she said. And there's no blood coming from her ears, no lip swelling. It'll be alright. She hasn't gone symptomatic yet. In that case, why did she collapse? Hitomi asked. I'm not sure yet. Whatever the case. If we don't get her that antiviral, she's done for.
Then we have to get her to the lab right away, Hitomi said.
She was trembling with anxiety. No, that's not an option. Kano's tone was grave. You may already be aware, Miss Osawa, but without a password we can't access the antiviral storage.
But when I went there, my father and Mr. Tanaka...
Mamoru Tanaka is dead. Murdered.
What?
She stared at him uncomprehendingly.
No, that can't be true.
He was a member of a crime syndicate. It's possible they killed him in order to silence him.
So then there's no way to save my sister?
There was a hollow look in Hitomi's eyes.
No, I won't accept that. Why? Why can't we help her?
But no one had an answer. Kano gritted his teeth and hung his head. Why did it have to come to this? He'd come this far, but there was nothing he could do, and he hated himself for it. I'll go to the laboratory. It was Kanan. Electronic lock-breaking is my specialty. Wait, the young man, Achi, spoke up suddenly. So you're a martial arts badass, but your specialty is lock-breaking? He looked positively dumbstruck. Kanan ignored him, thinking out loud. Brute force. Side channel. Shortcut. Given the situation, I think I have to go with side channel. Okay, so what are these? Crypt analysis. Blah blah. I kind of get an idea, cause Futaba, Persona 5. But yeah. Side channel, Stanley asked. Where's your equipment? One of the lab PCs will suffice. I can connect to a special server from the net. I don't really understand the stuff you're talking about, Achi said. But I'll trust you to handle this. I mean, you did risk your life to save Utomi from the minivan explosion and all. Kanan nodded. I have to warn you in advance, though. Cryptanalysis can take hours and still yield no results. I can't guarantee I'll be able to get the doors unlocked before Maria develops symptoms.
I understand,
Hitomi said. Achi nodded too. No one present had any objections. All of a sudden, there was a curious sound from somewhere in the room. What's that? Kano asked. What's making that noise? He looked around the workroom. That's my computer. Daisuke hurried to his desktop. The bank of monitors which had been displaying surveillance camera footage from around Shibuya had all gone black. What the hell? What's going on, Dad? Achi joined his father, staring at the computer screens. It's all gone. The camera footage, it's been deleted. Daisuke blinked in disbelief. Now then, it seems our main cast has all been assembled. A man's voice, distorted by a voice modulator, suddenly emerged from a computer speaker. Jigsaw.
Let's play again.
A moment later, the monitors all began to display a view of the inside of the workroom. Dad, what the hell is this? Someone's broken through our firewall. They've hijacked the surveillance camera system. The color drained from Daisuke's face as he looked at the screens. Where are they filming us from? Kano asked, scanning the inside of the room. He used the image on the monitors to guess where the camera might be located. Over here? The lens of a camera set atop the computer monitor glimmered like an eye. It was a miniature camera used for web conferencing and the like. Now that Maria and Hitomi are both there, you've probably surmised the situation at hand. And so, I offer a proposal. The laboratory password in exchange for Hitomi's blood. Realizing now that it was Alfred's voice they were hearing, everyone in the room froze. At 7 o'clock, roughly 1 hour from now, see that Hitomi Osawa is waiting at the Scramble intersection outside Shibuya Station, just like this morning. Unless, of course, you're feeling particularly confident. You do have Kanan with you. Perhaps you'd care to take a gamble on her lock-breaking skills instead. Kanan clicked her tongue in frustration. Alfred had known exactly what the plan was. Of course, if Kanan isn't able to get the door open in time, what will you do then? Maria is sure to die, yes. But that's not all. If you don't agree to my offer, I have the means of creating another Maria, and a third. These infectees will spread the virus through Tokyo. The death toll will likely number in the hundreds of thousands. So do think carefully before you decide. Alfred's voice was chillingly matter-of-fact. I will appear at the rendezvous in person. After all, it wouldn't do for the star of the show to miss the final curtain. I'm looking forward to meeting all of you then. Silence fell. Then the images on the computer monitor returned to normal. Their surveillance camera footage came back online as well. Daisuke promptly yanked out his Ethernet cable and slammed his fist on the keyboard. Damn it! There was a hole in the firewall. I'll have to redo my security from the ground up. Good call, Kanan said calmly. We can't win this if our intel keeps getting leaked. Stanley pursed his lips in consternation. What do we do? Kano asked him. Do we give in to his demands? I mean, do we really expect he's just going to blithely show up like that? He's practically begging for us to come and catch him. There had to be some deeper plan at work.
If it means saving my sister, I'll do it.
Hitomi was resolute. No, Stanley said, you can't.
What? Why not?
Because if you do, you'll be killed.
What?
Hitomi's voice caught in her throat. With the antiviral still present in your body a week after the fact, you're too much of a liability for Alfred to just let go. He's right, don't do it, Achi exclaimed. He told me you can't go.
Even still, I want to do it.
Hitomi stared defiantly at Stanley. You still want to go, even knowing that you'll be killed.
I can't just sit here and hope that Kanan's able to pull this off, she said. I want to do something for my sister. I want to save her.
She peered down at Maria, sprawled out on the floor.
She'd object to me going. I'm sure of that. But I want to do what I can. To do things my way.
No one tried to contradict her this time.
If she's willing to take the risk, then there are things the rest of you can do too.
It was Kanan again. Let's hear it, Kana replied. He squared his shoulders. He was of the same mind as Hitomi. He couldn't just do nothing and leave it all on Kanan. After everything he'd been through, he wanted to stick with his case until the very end. Apprehend Alfred at the rendezvous and demand the password from him. Kanan offered the suggestion as if it were a simple task. That lets you get what you want without putting Hitomi in danger. Kana let out a sigh. Hold on, he said. Even if we do arrest him, how are we going to get him to cough up the password? We don't have time to drag him off to an interrogation room. And besides, he doesn't strike me as the sort to offer a confession that easily. There are ways, Kanan said. Once Alfred has made contact with Hitomi, call my cell phone. Hitomi tilted her head. Call you? I have plenty of information Alfred might want to bargain for. I can negotiate with him directly. Kano considered Kanan's proposal. I see. So we'll try both options. Attempt to hack the password at the lab and also try negotiating with Alfred. That gives us 2 chances. With that tiny ray of hope, Hitomi's face brightened some. We'll split into 2 groups, one for the lab and one for Shibuya Station, Kanan said. Let's exchange phone numbers so we can be in touch when the time comes. The group quickly shared contact info as suggested. Hitomi and Kanan called one another's phones to be sure. Hitomi's cheerful ringtone felt out of place, but also somehow soothing, a fragment of normalcy in the midst of crisis.
Well, guess we're all set then, Hitomi said, looking down at the LCD screen.
Her expression turned apologetic.
I'm sorry, Kana, for having to keep putting things on you.
Hey, Kanan replied. Don't worry about it.
Okay, now I guess I should call my father.
Hitomi called Kenji Osawa on his cell, asking him to let Maria and Kanan into the lab. No, I don't... I'll come back to this later. Kana leaned in to whisper into Kanan's ear. Are you sure you're okay with this? With what? I know that you're after Alfred. Are you sure you want to go to the lab and not... Right now, I want to save Maria. That's all. Her tone was as curt and mechanical as ever, but there was a fierce gleam of determination in her eyes. Maria was clearly someone very special to her. All right, Kana replied. Leave Alfred to me. He thumped himself on the chest. He'd succeed this time, no matter what the odds. Kano could scarcely recall the whirlwind of events that had brought him here. He'd somehow survived a dozen disasters. Even now, a dear friend was in the hospital at risk of dying. There were times when he'd be ready to give up. And yet, at the end of it all, here he was. His opponent was an international terrorist. No matter how you looked at it, there wasn't a matchup for a mere detective. But I'm going to do it anyway. Rumi, Shizuo, Sasayama, and Detective Tateno. I'm going to take down Alfred and save Maria Osawa's life. Just you watch and see. Tanaka hadn't given Ai his password. Osawa's last chance had gone up in smoke. He let out a long, shaky breath and shut his eyes tight. Was it true? Was there nothing more he could do? Osawa's cell phone rang. When he saw the name of the incoming call display, he nearly shouted out loud. It was Hitomi. Hitomi! Are you alright? Please tell me you're alright.
Yeah, I'm fine. But Maria's...
Maria? Is Maria there with you? Osawa's heart leaped.
Dad, there isn't any time for me to explain everything, so I'll have to just give you the main points. This is so we can save my sister, so just stay calm and listen.
Osawa struggled to hold back the 1,000 questions that immediately came boiling into his mind.
There's a girl named Kanon who's going to bring Maria to the lab. She's going to try to hack the password in order to get us inside.
Wait, hold on. Just what in the world is going on?
There are a bunch of people here working to help save Maria. Can you wait for us at the lab, Dad?
I'm not sure that electronic lock is something that'll be so easy to...
We got another plan in motion too, and if that goes well, we might be able to learn the password.
It was all too much to follow, but Osawa realized he'd have to take Hitomi at her word. It was their only hope of saving Maria. Alright, he said. I'll do as you ask. But you said you're trying 2 approaches. You're not going to be in danger, are you?
No, I'll be fine. Don't worry about me.
Okay, very well. I'm heading to the laboratory now.
You can't.
You can't go. The moment Osawa hung up and started for the house, I clung to him from behind. If you use the antiviral now, she said, everything will go public. There's no way we can keep the virus or the antiviral under wraps at this point. Osawa tried to pull free, but his wife was stronger than he expected. Besides, if Maria infects other people, the whole world is going to find out in a matter of hours. No, we can just quarantine her. If it's handled correctly, we'll still be able to retain secrecy. His voice was cold as ice. Do you even have any idea what you're saying right now?
I do. I know how it sounds. But this is the only thing I can...
Her voice trailed off. He could feel the force of her trembling where she held him. Have I really put you into that much of a corner? Osawa slipped from Ai's arms and prostrated himself on the ground in front of her. I'm sorry. I'm truly, truly sorry.
Oh, stop this. Get up. If you're really sorry, then don't go to that lab.
But Osawa remained silent, his forehead pressed to the dirt. If you use that antiviral without corporate approval, your time with Akoshi's finished. That doesn't matter to me anymore.
How can you say that? Virology is the only thing you've ever cared about.
I began pummeling his back. Maybe virology is all that I care about. I don't know the first thing about anything else. I never wanted to know. Never even thought to find out. Never bothered to learn what you or my own children might think. I'm a failure. As a father and as a husband.
How dare you say that only after it's come to this?
I struck him again, harder than before. You're right, he gasped out the words between her blows. Maybe this has been too long coming. But it's not too late. I can still start over.
Start over?
She paused in disbelief.
You already turned down that American job. If you use the antiviral now, there won't be any starting over. You'll lose everything.
Will I lose you, too? After you've gone and thrown everything else away like this? How could I possibly stay with you? I was sobbing softly now. Osawa wondered what her tears were for. But there was one thing he did know. She was right. They couldn't be together anymore. He got to his feet and headed back into the house, leaving Ai behind. He hurried through the back entrance and went into the garage. Climbed into his car, fastened his seatbelt, and took a deep breath. The image of a younger Maria arose in the back of his mind. There she was at that park, getting drenched by the rain, holding back her tears as she waited for her father. "Wait for me, Maria. This time, I'm going to come for you." I was wrong. Going to the lab wouldn't mean losing everything. He let too many important things slip through his fingers. Now it was time to go take them back. Osama pulled his car onto the street and sped toward the laboratory. As if to signal that the long day was drawing to a close, the dazzling sun sank down between the buildings in the distance. End of his story, and... Okay, so this, to me, it's a weird block because it's 2 hours now, but whatever. Let's see. So 6 to 8. Start with Minorikawa. Hang in there, Chiaki. Just keep it together. Minorikawa rushed to her side and offered her a hand. Surely it hardly matters at this point. You're not going to make it on time regardless, Katayama said coldly. In any case, if 4-star General Gossip doesn't get released, it's Mr. Toyama who's going to be in trouble, not you. I dare say the world would be better off with one third-rate gossip rag less, anyway.
Shut your mouth, Chiaki snapped. If the gossip doesn't come out, I am going to be in trouble. An article I've written is supposed to be in next month's issue. It's a piece I worked on my very hardest on, to the very end. A piece Mr. Mino saw fit to put in print. And so if that goes away... If all that goes away... Yeah, I'll be in trouble, alright.
Chiaki's legs wobbled as she struggled to get back to her feet. Chiaki, Katayama said, your zeal is a marvelous thing. Worthy of admiration, even. But when it comes to work, results are all that matters. I'm sad to have to put it that way, but I must be honest. It's just common decency. Katayama glanced at his pocket watch. You have 57 minutes and 10 seconds remaining. At this rate, you won't even make it to the interview venue before your time's up. Frankly, I don't think even a further extension of your deadline would make any difference in the end.
Damn it.
Norikawa ground his teeth. He wondered if he should just leave Chiaki here and go interview SOS by himself. He could expand the article on SOS, then work a small part of Chiaki's interview piece in to at least fill the layout. Right now, the single most important thing was getting the magazine out the door for Toyama's sake. But if he did cut most of Chiaki's copy after all she'd done, he might wind up totally killing her passion for being a writer. I have to stop waffling. Professionals don't let their personal feelings dictate their decisions. I can help Chiaki work through her emotional struggles later. Chiaki, that's enough. The young woman got to her feet, staggering as she began to climb the stairs.
I'm not giving up, she said under her breath. I can't give up now.
Though obviously in pain, she struggled to keep her legs moving. Damn, I can't do it. Look how hard she's fighting to stay in the game. I can't tell her I don't need her article now. Releasing the next issue of the Gossip wasn't just going to save Toyama. It would save Chiaki as well. Minorikawa couldn't abandon either one of them. Which left him with a hell of a dilemma. He needed to make a decision. If he didn't stop wavering soon, they'd be out of time. But try as he might, he couldn't come up with a plan. Then he heard a familiar voice from behind him. If you're wondering what path to take, allow my taxi to be your guide. Minorikawa spun around to see Kimizuka standing there. Where to, sir? The driver asked. Despite his polite demeanor, his pride was obvious. Mr. Kimizuka, I appreciate the thought, but with this traffic... Traffic? I see nothing of the sort. Okay, sure, but... Minorikawa was well aware of Kimizuka's capabilities, but the prospect of cutting through the chaos that currently filled the streets was more than a little daunting. When you know this town as well as I do, there's nowhere you can go. You can't go. Alright. What other choice do I have? Guess I've gotta trust you. This'll be my last request of the day. Minorikawa pointed down the street. Ding, ding. Take us to the labyrinth. Take us to the labyrinth in Yurahajuku. The labyrinth in Urahajuku, you say? Harajuku. Kimizuka quirked an eyebrow. Is something the matter? No, nothing at all. Hurry up and get in. As soon as Minorikawa and the others had climbed into the cab, Kimizuka tore off through Shibuya's network of narrow side streets. The passengers in the back seat jostled roughly back and forth to the sound of screeching tires. This is altogether far too excessive, Katsuyama murmured, wincing as his head bounced repeatedly against the window. To think we allow such inconsiderate driving here in this country. Chiaki, meanwhile, had opened her laptop and was somehow working furiously to finish her copy. The sound of her fingers clicking across the keys echoed within the vehicle. How's it going, Chiaki? Minorikawa asked.
Just a little more.
Her eyes were glued to her monitor, her face all seriousness. Kimizuka glanced over at Minorikawa. If I may ask, sir, what business do you have at this labyrinth? Just a little interview. I hear a local gang called SOS uses the place as their big hangout. You're interviewing SOS? Sir, I feel it might be best not to get too involved with that lot. There was something about the driver's warning that seemed a little off. Do your taxi driver connections tell you what SOS is up to? Minorikawa asked. Originally, they were something of a vigilante corps, in the name of keeping the neighborhood clean and safe. but lately I hear nothing but bad things about them. Those loan sharks had said something very similar. Minorikawa reminded himself that he'd better be on his guard. Katayama chimed in. And just how do you plan to go about interviewing a gang like this? That's nothing for you to worry about. I have a plan. And just what exactly is this plan? It's a secret. Katayama gave him a derisive grin. Clearly, he wasn't impressed. Minorikawa turned to look at Chiaki. She appeared too engrossed in her copy to even hear the conversation. I realize this is for work, Kimizuka said worriedly. But do you really need to take such risks? Yes, I do. Minorikawa thought back to that look on Toyama's face. That look when he'd finally regained his confidence. He couldn't let Heaven Publishing go under. Toyama provided the canvas on which Minorikawa shared his art with the world. Thinking about it now, Minorikawa realized he'd always been chasing Toyama's shadow. Though it was galling to admit, that man had been the ideal Minorikawa strove to live up to. That was why he hated seeing Toyama reduced to such a pathetic state. He wanted Toyama to remain indomitable, to keep busting down any and all obstacles in his own peculiar way. Still, Minorikawa wasn't about to voice these feelings aloud. He felt more than a little embarrassed to be taking it all so personally. When you take on a job, you give it 100% every time. That's what makes you a professional, he said. Wouldn't you agree? I do indeed, Katayama chimed in. But you'll have to demonstrate that 100% in the limited time you have left. Which, by the way, is 51 minutes and 30 seconds. And I will not budge in the slightest on that submission deadline. Please do keep that in mind. The man took another look at his watch. I've got half a mind to break that thing, Minorikawa told him. Breaking my watch will not stop time. Minorikawa shot him a furious glare, but Katayama's composure was unwavering. The guy was unflappable, and the only way Minorikawa was going to be able to put him in his place was to meet his damn deadline. Easier said than done, though. He'd want to use 30 of the 51 minutes he still had to write his article. That only left him 20 or so to get the material. Kimizuka suddenly slammed on the brakes and the cab skidded to a halt. Minorikawa stared through the windshield in shock and saw a smallish, boxy minivan weaving erratically along the road. Whoa, look out, that thing's headed our way. Don't worry, sir, the driver replied. Just leave this to me. Keeping his cool, Kimizuka dexterously steered them clear of the oncoming vehicle. As the minivan sped past, an eerily cold breeze wafted over the taxi. I'm wondering, Angel... Try ice... oh no! Oxygen deprivation! Oh no! What the heck was that? Minorikawa asked. I'm not sure, Kimizuka said. But let's hurry on our way. Nimbly manipulating the gear stick, he stomped on the gas once more. Here we are, sir. They'd pull up outside of a dilapidated old pool hall. You're a lifesaver. Minorikawa clapped a hand on Kimizuka's shoulder. Just be sure to be careful, sir. Minorikawa nodded. Huh? What? Chiaki asked, looking up. What are we being careful about? Nothing, Minorikawa said. You just wait here in the car. You still got that copy to finish up, yeah? Well, yes. Alright then. Chiaki frowned but resumed her typing. "And you wait here too," Minorikawa said to Katsuyama. "But of course, that goes without saying. Incidentally, you have 49 minutes and 6 seconds remaining." Minorikawa did some quick mental math. With the half hour he'd already set aside, that left him 19 minutes. However dangerous SOS might be, he couldn't afford to hesitate for even a single second. Bracing himself, he stepped out of the taxi and headed for the pool hall. Minorikawa took a deep breath as he approached the grimy door. "Here goes." He drew his leg back and gave the door a hearty kick. What the heck? What is this place? Minorikawa had come to a pitch-black void. A cold wind blew from deep within the darkness, carrying with it the sound of a bestial roar. "It almost looks like a dungeon of some sort," Minorikawa said. "Well, I anticipated this much." He pulled a fountain pen from his pocket. "It's no good bringing your gear with you if you don't actually equip it," he said. Pen clutched firmly in his right hand, he strode boldly into the darkness. Aha, a branching path, huh? He'd been walking for some time now. Now, up ahead, there was a T that led both left and right. And the sign there looks pretty important. Minorikawa peered closely at the 4 lines written there. "The honest one tells no lies. A liar never tells the truth. 1 is honest, 2 are liars. See if you can find what's true." Seeking the truth, huh? That's something I can get fired up about. Minorikawa decided to go right. After making his way along a chilly passage, he emerged into a chamber of about 10 square meters. Tama, but green. A green cat wore a white sign around its neck. "I have whiskers. What's that all about?" The green cat grinned proudly at Minorikawa's inquiry.
"It's a hint," the cat said. "It's saying that whatever it has whiskers."
I see. So by getting hints like this, I'll eventually be able to solve some riddle and win the challenge.
I can't answer any questions. All you get is what's written here. Now proceed."
I don't need to fight you or anything.
"Nothing of the sort. I'm not much into pain, really. Instead, I'll leave you with a warning."
The green cat lowered its voice.
"There's a liar in here."
A liar?
"Yes, the blue cat is a liar. Only the green cat tells the truth."
The blue cat is a liar?
Keep that in mind and be on your way. You mustn't believe what the blue cat tells you."
Alrighty then.
See ya.
And with that, the green cat scampered off down the passageway. Minorikawa followed in the same direction. You being so, insistent about it makes you want to trust the blue cat anyway. He came to a dead end. There was a large hole in the floor. A ladder extended down through the darkness. There appeared to be no other way to continue. Minorikawa headed down. From the bottom of the long ladder, another passageway stretched out. Minorikawa squinted, but it was too dark to see how far the tunnel might go on. He could still turn back, but it wasn't the Minorikawa way to bail out after coming so far. He walked onward, never looking back. After a while, he reached another T, a choice of left and right again. Minorikawa went right again.
Hello!
This time in the room at the far end of another long straight passage, he found a red cat waiting. This one likewise had a sign around its neck. Minorikawa read its message. I'm a fast runner. Huh. He took his pen back out and jotted down the words on the palm of his hand.
Have you got that? The red cat asked. Yeah, you've got that. Yeah, you got it. Anyway, I'm off.
Wait, hold on, Minorikawa called out. The cat stopped. The green cat earlier told me something. It said the blue cat is a liar.
Ah, is that so?
So, what about you, then?
I only speak the truth.
Really?
Whether you believe that or not is up to you. Anyway, I'm off.
Using its paws to hold up its floppy belly, the red cat scampered off. Minorikawa followed in the same direction. He came to a dead end. There was a large hole in the floor. A ladder extended down through the darkness. There appeared to be no other way to continue. It was practically begging him to climb down it. From the bottom of the long ladder stretched another passageway. Minorikawa squinted, but it was too dark to see how far the tunnel might go on. He was starting to think it might be a good idea to turn back, but he couldn't bear to give up now. He walked onward, never looking back. After a while, he reached another T, a choice of left and right again. Minorikawa went right for the third time. You liar, supposedly. The blue cat stood there, panting raspily. Minorikawa read the words written on its white sign. I'm round.
That's right. And that's no lie. It's the red cat who tells lies after all.
Right, got it.
Make sure you hammer this hint into your head, okay?
I'll be fine. Right, then time to move on. But as Minorikawa began to head down the passageway, the blue cat hurried to bar his path.
Wait up. You don't need to be in such a hurry. Have yourself a little rest before you go.
Sorry, but I don't have time to dilly-dally.
It doesn't need to be for very long.
No, I'm headed off. The blue cat frowned in consternation.
You really shouldn't rush so much. It's bad for your health.
With a flurry of paw swipes, the cat wiped its signboard clear. Then it scurried away, scowling back resentfully at Minorikawa as it went. Minorikawa followed in the same direction. He came to a dead end. There was a large hole in the floor, and naturally there was a ladder. Minorikawa headed down as a matter of course. At the bottom of the absurdly long ladder was, as expected, another long, narrow passageway. No longer harboring any thought of turning back, Minorikawa pressed onward. After a while, he reached another T, a choice of left and right again. A breeze was blowing from the passageway to the right. Minorikawa went right. Let's see, right? Okay. Making his way toward the source of the breeze, Minorikawa spotted a light far in the distance ahead. Could it be? There was no doubt about it. It's the exit. Minorikawa broke into a full-on sprint. And yet, no matter how much he ran, he couldn't seem to reach his destination. On and on he went, but as far as he could tell, the exit got no closer. Meanwhile, the hallway was getting lower and narrower. Soon the ceiling had descended to just above his head, and the walls had closed in until he could touch both simultaneously. Before long, he had to turn sideways to continue. Still, he pressed ahead, until he no longer had the space to stand. Then he dropped to all fours and crawled along. Eventually, he was forced to writhe along on his belly. Even then, the distant view of the outside seemed impossibly far away. He went on until the passageway was a mere 30 centimeters wide. Scrunching his body up, he forced himself even further along. Finally, he could see that the exit was getting near. It looked like he had maybe 10 more meters to go. Minorikawa stretched himself out like an earthworm, inching his way along. And then, unexpectedly, his outstretched right hand thrust through the opening and emerged outside. He felt the warm caress of the air against his fingers. Whoa, what the... He thought the exit was 10 meters away, but it was really just a 10-centimeter hole right in front of him. He tried to back up, only to discover that his body was stuck, and there was no way he could go forward through that tiny hole. The only part of him that remained free to move was his hand on the outside. Hey, somebody help! He flapped his hand around, shouting through the opening. Somebody get me out of here! Sometime later, an urban legend spread through Shibuya. A tale of a hand that would appear out of thin air, grab unsuspecting passers-by, and spirit them away. Go to sleep. Thank you! Game over. Kano. Kano's cell phone rang. He saw Kuze's name on the display. Kano speaking. What the hell are you doing? The director's voice was shrill with irritation. What's the situation with Maria Osawa? I have her in custody, sir. We need to get her into quarantine immediately. I'll send a counter-NBC terrorism unit to pick her up. Nuclear, biological, and chemical. What's your location? Sir, the situation's a little complicated at the moment, Kano replied. He and Stanley made eye contact. Kano gave him a knowing nod. He knew what he needed to do here. He briefly informed Kuze of the plan to take Maria to the laboratory, but was careful not to mention Alfred. Please, sir, Kano said, bowing reflexively to the phone. Let me handle this. Absolutely not, Kuze exclaimed. There's no way I can allow that. Maria Osawa needs to go in quarantine right now. Sir, please, just give us a little more time. Giving her the antiviral is the only way we can save her. If we put her in quarantine, it'll be a death sentence. Kuze let out a growl of frustration. Kano, that isn't your decision to make. Kano had run out of arguments. It was clear that Kuze's only concern was stopping the spread of the virus. Director Kuze, are you just going to let Maria Osawa die? We can't put the lives of everyone in Shibuya at risk in order to save a single person. I know that, sir. That's why I'm asking you to please let me go to that laboratory. And if it looks like we're not going to be able to hack the password, then at that point, a quarantine can... Kano! Kuze snapped. I'm giving you an order. And I'm not accepting that order. Listen, Kuze said. How many years have you been a cop? What do you mean by that, sir? Kuze didn't reply. Is this an order from up top? What's going on here, sir? Please, I need some kind of explanation. Stop it, Kuze said. You sound like a child. This is dereliction of duty. Call me a child if you want, but I'm not following an order that I know isn't right. Kano punched the end call button with his thumb. From an objective standpoint, maybe Kuze was right. They needed to think about more than just Maria. If the Ua virus spread through Shibuya, it would be a nightmare of epic proportions. Kano understood that perfectly clearly. But still, he looked down at Maria's face as she lay collapsed on the floor. This girl was still alive, and Kano couldn't stand idly by and let a living, breathing person die. Consequences be damned, he wasn't going to be the one to weigh the worth of someone's life. As he stood, still clutching his cell phone, Stanley gently set a hand on his shoulder. You did fine, he said quietly. Alfred is in possession of the Ua virus. The people of Shibuya are already in danger. He may have already released the virus in the city. If he hasn't, he may do so at any time. Right now, what we need to do is get that antiviral and arrest Alfred. You made the right choice here. Thanks, Stanley. I appreciate hearing that. Stanley gave Kano a slap on the back. He was right. At this point, they needed to focus on the things they could still accomplish. So guys, Ashi stepped forward. Who's gonna take Hitomi's sister and Kanon to the lab? Maria was in no condition to walk, so they were going to have to take a car, which meant they needed a driver. I only have a motorcycle license, Achi said, and I don't know where the lab is anyhow. I should go with Maria alone. Kanon looked over at the others. There's no way of knowing for sure when she might become contagious. We shouldn't needlessly risk exposing more people to infection. She knelt down to gather Maria in her arms. In that case, I should drive. Kano whirled around at the sound of a new voice behind him. Tatena was standing in the doorway. You! Ashi's face went red with rage. Do come back to this. Why? Like, at least it's kind enough for me to finish something first before it kicks me out, but like, why? Achi... You! Achi snarled. In the doorway stood the man with the cane. Detective Tateno. Tateno. Kano and Daisuke spoke simultaneously. Now, at last, Achi had a name for the assassin. It was a name he felt he heard somewhere before. You son of a bitch! Achi roared. What the hell are you doing here? Tateno bowed his head profusely. I'm truly sorry. You're sorry? Sorry don't cut it, man. Not after what you were trying to do, he told me. I don't expect you to forgive me, and I intend to turn myself in to be punished for my crimes. But before I do that, please let me do what I can to help you. I think you've helped enough. Achi grabbed Tateno by the collar and drew back his fist. Kano moved to stop him, but Tateno held up a hand. No, it's alright. Let him do as he pleases. There was no trace of the menacing expression the man had worn in their previous encounters. Achi scowled but lowered his fist, then released his hold on Tateno's collar. Fine. Hitomi's sister needs help, so we do need a driver right now. Make sure those two get to the lab and back safely. That'll make up for the punch I didn't give you just now. Thank you. I'm so sorry. Daisuke stepped forward. No, I'm the one who should be apologizing. I'm the one who got you caught up in this. Daisuke, we really didn't grow up to be very good people, did we? No, guess not. The two men stared bleakly at each other, shoulders slumped. In the end, Tateno said, I guess we were just trying to run away from our pain. Yeah, didn't expect my own son to be the one to teach me that. Achi's turned out to be a fine young man. He is Katone's boy, after all. Guys! Achi stepped into the middle of their solemn heart-to-heart. You can get sappy all you want later. Dad, once this is all over, we're going to go see Suzune, okay? Sure. Daisuke nodded heartily. Hold on, Kano spoke up, turning to Stanley. If these two take Maria to the lab, that leaves just us two to apprehend Alfred down at the Scramble. Is that going to be enough? I mean, Alfred's not going to show up without a plan. The more people we have on our side, the better. And I doubt we'd be able to get any help from the police. Good point, Stanley agreed. Hey, Achi said. I'm here too. And I'm going with you. I'll keep Hitomi safe. Oh look, good news, Kano. Now we have 3 people. Stanley let out a sardonic laugh. Kano frowned. Achi, I appreciate the offer, but having 3 people instead of 2 won't make much of a difference. When you're not sure of the enemy's exact plan, you really need strength in numbers. If you could set up a dragnet like the task force did this morning, that'd be ideal, but... Come on, Detective, Achi said. Don't you have any idea what sort of approach the psycho might take? If I were Alfred, Kano mused, then I suppose my biggest problem would be figuring out how to get away after I'd taken Hitomi's blood. Stanley nodded in agreement. I'm betting he plans to involve the Yuba virus, he said. If, for instance, he tells us he set up a device somewhere to spread the virus throughout Shibuya, that prevents us from taking action against him. Achi swallowed hard. This guy wanted to unleash a killer virus in Shibuya. If he succeeded, then the town Achi had known and loved all his life would become a graveyard. Of course, that's mere conjecture, Stanley murmured. Quite frankly, even I can only guess what he's going to do. His expression was grim. Strength in numbers, huh? Ashi said. So you're saying we absolutely need more people, is that it? Essentially, yes, Stanley replied. But not just anyone, mind. If it's not a group that meshes well, it'll hinder more than help. Kano folded his arms across his chest. He looked perplexed. People who mesh well together, huh? Achi had an idea. SOS. He could ask SOS. If there was anything he could do, it was that. It was a selfish request, he knew that. Suzumu would probably be furious with him, but Achi would just have to deal with that. Even if his old pals wouldn't forgive him, if they understood that they'd be helping protect Shibuya, he was sure they'd step up and take action. After all, the whole point of the game was that it was made up of people who loved their town. Can you give me a half hour? I'm gonna try and see if I can rustle up some people. Kano straightened himself up. You think you can do it? Achi nodded assertively. Just wait here for me, okay? He said to Hitomi. She gave him a worried smile.
Alright, I'll be waiting.
It'll be okay. Achi did his best to sound reassuring. I promise I'll bring back some help. He knew where he needed to go, the pool hall in Urahajuku that was his old gang's main hideout. Running at top speed, he could probably make it in about 10 minutes. Alright! Rushing out the door with a battle cry loud enough for Kano and the others to hear from the back inside the shop, and Achi sped on his way. And then jump here. Achi's protests were vehement, but he backed down at last. Tateno would escort Kanan and Maria to the lab. That left 3 to try to apprehend Alfred. Kano, Stanley, and Achi. Having only 3 people was a dicey prospect, though, so Achi took it upon himself to head out and gather some backup. Tateno got the car keys from Daisuke, then helped Kanan pick Maria up off the floor. Kano watched him warily. There was no trace of the blood-curdling expression the older detective had shown when he was holding Maria at gunpoint. His face was that of a man with a responsibility, the Tateno that Kano had always known.
Are you sure you're okay doing this?
Hitomi asked Tateno.
You might get infected.
That doesn't matter. Don't worry about me. All I care about now is helping you two if I can. He hesitated, glancing down at the unconscious girl he held. By the way, have Maria's memories come back? Hitomi tilted her head.
Her memories?
I suspect she took a blow to the head when she was abducted. When I ran into her earlier, she didn't even know her own name.
Well, she seemed like the same sister I've always known when she came in here.
Good. Then her memory must have been recovered. Kana was shocked to hear that Maria had suffered amnesia. But it explained why she hadn't contacted anyone after she'd been set free. Alright then, Tateno said. We'll be back. Carrying Maria, he and Kanan headed for the door. Detective Tateno. Kano called out, then paused, tongue-tied when Tateno stopped. There were so many things Kano wanted to say, but he couldn't find the words for any of them. Once Maria is safe, I'll turn myself in. Tateno kept his back turned. The words were like a dagger in Kano's heart. Once this was all over, Tateno would no longer be a detective, but a criminal. Kano knew there was no alternative, but still the realization hit him hard. Detective Tateno. Stop your dithering. But never lose sight of what you're supposed to protect. Ever. Kano snapped back to attention at Tateno's words. That was Dick Dictum number 1, the advice that had kicked off the whole Dick diary. I'm not the one you should be worrying about right now, Tateno continued. We need to save Maria Osawa's life, and protect the people of Shibuya. Kano bit his lip. Yes, you're right. Kano did his best to quash his emotions. Then we're good. Tateno gave a slight nod, then headed out the door. Detective Tateno. Just before the older man disappeared, Kano called out one last time. Be careful out there. Tateno flashed a hint of a smile, then left the workroom. There were only 30 minutes remaining until the time when Alfred had told them Hitomi should be at the Scramble. They needed to get ready for action. Is the surveillance camera system still up? Kano asked. Yes, Daisuke replied. Looks like what happened earlier was just a temporary hacking job. Then will you help us? Daisuke inclined his head. What do you mean? I'd like you to keep your eye on the Scramble for us. If anyone suspicious tries to get near Hitomi, let us know. Anyone suspicious? How will I know what's suspicious? Like that organ trafficker who suggested you kidnap Hitomi, Mr. Endo. It's possible that he might be Alfred. Would you be able to recognize his face? Daisuke furrowed his brow deeply as he began entering commands on his keyboard. Yeah, don't think I could ever forget. It's because of him that I... He left the rest unsaid. A moment later, several of the monitors switched over to feeds from around the Scramble. Alright, Daisuke squinted at the images. I'm not sure how much help I can be, but let me at least try to atone for what I've done. Of course, and thank you. Daisuke's fingers flew over the keyboard, and soon all the monitors were focused on the Scramble and its surroundings. Then he carefully adjusted the angle and zoom for each of the cameras. Now the whole area was under total surveillance. All they had to do was get their stakeout crew to the scene. Where did Achi go? Kano asked Hitomi.
I'm not totally sure, but I think he went to find some of his old friends.
Hitomi sounded worried. Friends?
Achi used to belong to a gang called SOS. Actually, he told me he was the one who formed the gang in the first place.
What? Kano couldn't keep the shock from his voice. Achi was the founder of SOS. How bizarre that the two of them would wind up meeting each other this way.
But I guess there was a big falling out between them. So I think he went to try and win them back over.
Kano hadn't heard anything good about SOS since Achi had left them. If things had ended on bad terms between him and the gang, getting them to help might well be a lost cause. And even if Achi was able to gather some people up, how much would Kano and the others be able to trust them?
It'll be alright, Hitomi said, as if sensing Kano's thoughts. I'm sure Achi will bring back some of his old friends. And when he does bring them,
I'm sure he'll choose people he can count on. You really trust him, don't you?
Yes,
Hitomi said without hesitation. Then a blush came to her cheeks. Alright, then I'll trust him too. It would take about 10 minutes to get from Endo Electronics to the Scramble. Kano turned to Stanley. Let's plan to head out by 6:50. Stanley gave no reply. He had withdrawn to the edge of the room, where he stood lost in thought, his expression uneasy. Kano decided to leave him alone for a bit. Taking a sheet of paper from one of the desks, he began drafting a plan for positioning Achi's reinforcements around the Scramble. Alright, there we go. In about 5 minutes, he had drawn up a little map of the optimal places to deploy the team. It included positions for as many as 20 people Achi might bring back. Kano. Kano turned around, surprised to find Stanley right behind him all of a sudden. The American looked haggard. Is something the matter? Kano asked. You need to go to the Scramble without me. What? Where's this coming from all of a sudden? Please, don't ask me to explain. Something else has come up, and I have to see to it. Sweat beaded on Stanley's brow. Whatever had happened, Kano had no doubt it was something major. And almost certainly it had something to do with Alfred. Stanley, Kano said. Please, tell me. Please, tell me. We're past the point of keeping secrets. They've come this far together. Surely it was too late to get all tight-lipped now. I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you more. Stanley dropped his eyes. Kano had a vague idea of what Stanley was up to. He probably felt he needed to keep things hidden even from his own allies in order to help keep Alfred in the dark. Or at least that was Kano's guess. Alright, I understand, Kano said with resignation. Do what you have to, and come back soon. With an apologetic look on his face, Stanley turned and hurried from the workroom. Kano glanced at his watch. It was coming up on 6:50. Pretty soon they'd have to head for the Scramble, but Achi still hadn't returned. We need to head out soon, he said to Hitomi.
You said 6:50, she replied. There's still 2 more minutes to go.
Kano let out a tiny sigh. He shared Hitomi's fervent hope that the reinforcements would come, but not her confidence. If Achi didn't reappear, Kano would be left to protect Hitomi all by himself. And to try to apprehend Alfred as well. Would he be able to pull it off if it came to that? Yes. He'd just have to trust himself to see things through on his own. He decided to head to the Scramble with Hitomi right away. This wasn't about whether he could or couldn't. He would do it. He had to do it. There was no time for doubt anymore. Hitomi, I don't like having to do this, but we can't wait any longer. Seeing the look of determination on Kano's face, she gave a tiny, reluctant nod. Alright, I think this is a good place to stop. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll continue on, let's see, with Achi next. So stay tuned for that. If you want to, any support's appreciated. I have links to my coffee and this new throne wishlist thing that I learned from a friend recently.
So if you want to, anything helps. So again, thank you, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!